It is 3 in the morning, and the world is asleep. The house is still, wrapped in a profound silence that is broken only by the low hum of the refrigerator or the distant sigh of a passing car. Outside, the moon casts a pale, indifferent light onto empty streets. But inside your room, inside your mind, there is a storm. Your body is heavy with exhaustion, yet your mind refuses to rest. It is a wild theater of thoughts, each one demanding your full attention. An email you forgot to send, a conversation from last week, replayed and dissected for the 10th time, a worry about money, a fear for the future, a regret from the past. Each thought is a spark, and together they create a wildfire of anxiety that consumes any possibility of peace. You feel a familiar tightness in your chest, a tension in your jaw. You shift your position, fluff the pillow, pull the blanket closer, as if a change in physical posture could somehow quiet the inner chaos. And beneath it all, a frustrating, nagging thought, the one that feels like a betrayal. Why can't I just sleep? This experience, this lonely struggle in the deep of the night, is not a personal failing. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is, instead, a symptom of the world we have built. We live our waking hours in a state of constant stimulation, a relentless flood of information, notifications, and demands. We are told to hustle, to optimize, to be productive, to constantly improve. Our minds are trained to be always on, always solving, always planning. And so, when we finally lay our heads down, the mind does not know how to stop. It simply continues the work it has been doing all day. The sleeplessness you feel is a quiet scream from a part of your soul that is deeply exhausted, a plea for a kind of rest that goes far beyond the physical. It is a longing for stillness, but there exists a path to that stillness. An ancient, gentle, and profound path that has been walked for over 2,500 years. It does not offer a magic pill or a quick fix. It offers something far more valuable. It offers a form of wisdom, a practical science of the mind, that teaches us not how to silence the storm, but how to find the calm, unshakable center within it. It is a way of learning to befriend your own mind, to understand its habits, and to gently guide it back to its natural state of peace. This is not a call to become someone else, or to adopt a foreign belief system. It is an invitation to come home to the quiet sanctuary that has, all along, been waiting for you, right here, inside. To begin this journey into stillness, we must first meet the primary resident of our mind, the one who is the source of so much of our nightly turmoil. The ancient sages of the East, with their profound and often playful understanding of human nature, gave this entity a name. They called it the monkey mind. It is a perfect metaphor because it captures not just the restlessness of our thoughts, but also their character. The monkey is not malicious. It is not evil. It is simply untrained. It is driven by an insatiable, almost frantic curiosity. It cannot stay in one place for more than a few moments. Imagine a small, energetic monkey set loose in a vast jungle of memories, ideas, and sensations. It swings effortlessly from one branch to another with no discernible logic or purpose. One moment, it is clinging to the branch of a past regret, a conversation that ended badly, a mistake made years ago. It chatters and agitates, pointing and screeching about what you should have said, what you should have done. Then, just as suddenly, it leaps across a chasm of time to the branch of a future anxiety. It paints vivid, terrifying pictures of what might go wrong tomorrow at work, a potential illness, a financial shortfall. It whispers endless what-ifs into your ear, each one more frightening than the last. Then, bored with the future, it swings to a random branch of sensation, a slight itch on your foot, the sound of the house settling, a feeling of warmth or cold. It might then grab onto the branch of a catchy song, playing a single line over and over again, a meaningless but persistent loop. From there, it jumps to a grocery list, to the face of a person you haven't seen in a decade, to a sudden, inexplicable feeling of sadness or joy. This is the chaotic, dizzying dance of the monkey mind. It is a constant, chattering monologue that pulls our attention in 1,000 different directions, leaving us feeling fragmented, exhausted, and utterly out of control. Now, you might wonder, why does this monkey seem to become so much more active, so much louder, precisely when you want it to be quiet? Why does it save its most acrobatic and noisy performances for the sacred hours of the night? The reason is simple. During the day, the monkey has an entire world to play in. Your work, your chores, your conversations, the music on the radio, the notifications on your phone, the flow of traffic, the people you meet. All of these are like shiny toys and colorful distractions for the monkey. It is constantly occupied, its attention captured by the endless stream of external stimuli. The world does the work of entertaining your mind. You may feel busy or even stressed, but the monkey is, in a way, content. It is engaged. But then, you decide it is time for sleep. You turn off the lights, you silence your phone, you close your eyes. You effectively take all of the monkey's toys away. You close the doors and windows of the external playground. And what happens when you leave a restless creature in a dark, quiet room? It panics, it becomes bored, and a bored monkey will create its own stimulation. It turns its frantic energy inward. It begins to rattle the cages of memory, to pry open the boxes of worry that you have kept sealed during the day. Small concerns that were manageable in the light of the sun are magnified by the darkness and silence, becoming grotesque, terrifying monsters. The silence of the room does not create peace. It simply creates a vacuum that the monkey's chatter rushes to fill. The profound stillness of the night becomes the perfect, echoing chamber for its cries. This is why the effort to find silence can so often feel like it only creates more noise. You are not imagining it. You are simply witnessing the predictable behavior of an untrained mind when its distractions are removed. Faced with this internal chaos, our instincts are to fight back. We try to control the monkey, to force it into submission, and this leads us to a few common and universally failing strategies. The first is suppression. We try to build a wall against our thoughts. We tell the monkey, "Be quiet, go away, I will not think about this." We grit our teeth and try to force our mind to be a blank slate. But this is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The very act of pushing it down creates an immense upward pressure. The energy you expend trying not to think about something is a form of attention, and it paradoxically strengthens the very thought you wish to banish. The monkey does not respond to force. When you yell at it, it screeches back even louder. When you try to cage it, it rattles the bars with all its might. The second failing strategy is to chase the monkey. A worrying thought appears, and instead of letting it be, we engage with it. We follow it down its path. The monkey screeches about a deadline, and we immediately start planning every detail, imagining every possible failure. It shows us a memory of an argument, and we begin to relitigate the entire event in our heads, feeling the anger and frustration all over again. We become so engrossed in the monkey's drama that we forget we are lying in bed trying to rest. An hour can pass in what feels like a minute, as we follow this creature on its wild chase through the jungles of our own mind, leaving us more agitated and further from sleep than when we started. There is a story of a young monk who went to his Zen master, his face a mask of frustration. "Master," he said, "I cannot meditate. I try to focus, but my mind is a wild monkey. It will not obey. I try to tie it to the post of my breath, but it chews through the rope and runs away, causing havoc and making a fool of me. What can I do? How can I kill this monkey?" The old master smiled with a deep compassion and looked at his student. You will never find peace by trying to kill the monkey, he said gently, and tying it up will only make it more frantic and cunning. Your approach is wrong. Do not try to kill it. Do not try to tie it. Instead, do this. In your mind, build a large, spacious garden for the monkey. In the very center of this garden, place a single, tall, sturdy stake. Then, leave the gate to the garden open. And you sit comfortably, peacefully, just outside the garden. Your only task is to watch the monkey. Do not judge it. Do not chase it. Simply watch. See how it runs and jumps. Listen to its chatter. When it climbs the stake in the center, notice it. When it runs to the far edges of the garden, notice that too. Over time, the monkey, feeling your calm and patient attention, will grow tired of its own antics. It will spend more and more time near the stake, its home base. It will not feel threatened by you, and it will slowly, in its own time, begin to settle. Your job is not to conquer the monkey, but to become its friend. This simple story contains the entire secret. The garden is your own awareness. The stake in the center is your anchor, the feeling of your breath or the sensations in your body. And you, the watcher, are your true self. The most profound realization you can have is this: you are not the monkey. You are the one who is aware of the monkey. This creates a space between the thinker and the thought. In that space, there is freedom. In that space, there is peace. The goal is not to achieve a state of blankness, to eradicate the mind's natural energy. A tamed monkey is a wonderful ally. Its energy, when calmed and focused, becomes the source of creativity, insight, and joy. The practice is not about destruction, but about transformation. It is about shifting your relationship with your own mind from one of conflict to one of compassionate, patient observation. You are simply learning to sit outside the garden and watch, with kindness, as the wild energy within you slowly, gently, finds its way home to a place of rest. We have met the chattering monkey, the restless energy that populates our mind. We have made a promise not to fight it, but to watch it. This leads to the most important question of the entire practice. How do we watch? What is the quality, the texture of this observation? The answer lies in a profound shift of perspective, a movement from being lost within the chaos to becoming a calm and impartial witness to it. To do this, we can turn to another powerful metaphor, the mind as a great, flowing river. For most of our lives, we are not even aware that we are in a river. We are simply being carried along by its currents. A strong current of anger pulls us under, and we thrash about, sputtering and fighting. A swift current of anxiety sweeps us downstream, and we frantically paddle against it, exhausted and afraid. A pleasant, gentle current of happiness carries us for a while, and we cling to it, dreading the moment it will change. We are so immersed in the water, so identified with its every movement, that we believe we are the river. The anger is my anger. The anxiety is me. This identification is the root of our suffering. It is the glue that binds us to the turmoil of the monkey mind. The thoughts themselves, the water in the river, are not the ultimate problem. They are natural phenomena. Thoughts arise. They exist for a time, and they pass away. They are as natural as clouds forming in the sky or leaves falling from a tree. They are inherently substanceless, like mist. A thought is not a command. A memory is not the event itself. A worry is not a prophecy. They are simply mental weather. The true problem, the source of deep suffering, arises the moment we grab onto a thought and infuse it with the weight of our own identity. It is the moment we stop seeing the cloud and instead believe we are the storm. The practice then is to learn how to swim to the shore, climb out onto the soft earth of the bank, and simply sit, watching the river of the mind flow by. From this stable vantage point, you can see everything with a new clarity. You can see the river's true nature. You see the angry, churning rapids, but you are not being thrown against the rocks. You feel the cool spray on your face, but you are not drowning. You see the dark, swirling eddies of sadness, but you are not being pulled into their depths. You see the sparkling, sunlit patches of joy, and you can appreciate their beauty without the desperate fear of them ending. From the riverbank, you are safe, you are grounded, you are free. The river continues its journey, as it always will, but it no longer has the power to overwhelm you. So how does one, in the dead of night when anxieties are roaring, actually get to the riverbank? It is a practice of 3 gentle, repeating steps. The first step is simply to acknowledge. It is the moment you wake up from the dream of thought. You are lying in bed, lost in a detailed mental movie about a future catastrophe, and a part of you, a quiet, observing part, suddenly notices. It says, "Ah, here I am, worrying." That moment of recognition, no matter how fleeting, is a moment of profound freedom. The spell is broken. The instant you realize you have been carried away by the current, you are, by definition, no longer completely lost in it. You have found a foothold. This moment is not a failure. It is the entire practice in a single heartbeat. It is a moment to be celebrated, quietly and gently. The second step is to label. Having acknowledged the thought, you give it a soft, non-judgmental label. This is not a deep psychoanalysis. It is a simple, almost administrative task. As you see the thought currents flowing by, you might note planning, worrying, remembering, judging, fantasizing. The label acts as a buffer. It depersonalizes the thought. Instead of an all-consuming, "I am so anxious about money," it becomes, "Ah, I see anxiety about money," flowing by. It reframes the experience from a personal crisis to an impersonal event. You are like a scientist observing weather patterns, noting cirrus, cumulus, stratus. The clouds are still there, but they are now objects of observation, not the entirety of your sky. This simple act of labeling creates even more space. It reminds you that you are the watcher on the riverbank, not the debris being carried in the water. You can even be playful with it. Here comes the replaying that awkward conversation boat again. I see it. This light touch prevents the practice itself from becoming another source of tension. The third and final step is to return. After acknowledging and gently labeling, you consciously and kindly guide your attention back to your anchor. For most, this is the physical sensation of the breath. You feel the cool air at the nostrils, the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen. You are returning your attention to the solid ground of the present moment, the firm earth of the riverbank. You do not push the thought away or try to stop the river. You simply shift your gaze. The river of thoughts will continue to flow in your peripheral vision, and that is perfectly fine. Its noise will fade into the background as you focus on the simple, steady, reliable rhythm of your own body, breathing in and breathing out. Inevitably, the monkey mind will grab your attention again, and you will find yourself back in the water. And the practice is simply to repeat the steps with infinite patience. Acknowledge, label, return. It is a rhythm of kindness, a gentle dance with your own mind, performed over and over again. There is a beautiful old story about a farmer and his water buffalo. One day, the farmer's powerful buffalo, his most prized possession, wandered into a patch of the rice paddy where the mud was especially deep and thick. It became completely stuck. The farmer's son, young and impatient, ran to the field and began to pull on the buffalo's harness with all his strength. He yelled at the animal, he tugged, he strained until his muscles burned and sweat poured down his face. But the more he pulled, the more the buffalo struggled, and the deeper it seemed to sink into the clinging mud. The direct, forceful approach was not working. It was only making things worse. The old farmer, seeing the commotion, walked calmly to the edge of the paddy. He did not grab the rope, he did not yell. He simply knelt down and began to do something strange. He started scooping the thick, wet mud from around the buffalo's legs. With his bare hands, he patiently removed the mud, handful by handful, tossing it aside. He was not acting on the buffalo itself. He was changing the environment around it. He was removing the resistance. He was creating space. He worked calmly and steadily, and after some time, enough mud had been cleared that the buffalo, feeling the freedom around its legs, was able to lift a foot, then another, and with a great sigh, it walked out of the mud on its own. In this story, the buffalo is a powerful, stuck thought or emotion, perhaps the overwhelming feeling of, I will never get to sleep. We are the sun, trying to fight it directly, to pull it and force it into submission, which only makes it more stuck. The practice of sitting by the river, of non-judgmental observation, is the wisdom of the old farmer. We do not fight the thought itself. Instead, we gently remove the mud of identification, judgment, and resistance from around it. By acknowledging, labeling, and returning to the breath, we are creating space. We are allowing the thought to be there without getting stuck in it. And when we do this, we discover something miraculous. The thought, deprived of the mud of our resistance, often loses its power and, in its own time, simply wanders away. We are learning to work with our minds, not against them, creating the conditions for freedom rather than trying to command it into existence. We are sitting on the riverbank, watching the relentless flow of our thoughts and feelings. We have learned to create a little space, to recognize that we are the watcher, not the water. As we sit with this newfound awareness, we begin to notice a crucial pattern. We see that our suffering is not a single, monolithic event. It is a chain reaction. And understanding this chain reaction is the key to breaking it. The Buddha, with his characteristic genius for simple, powerful metaphors, explained this process in a teaching that is now known as the Salatha Sutta, or the Discourse on the Arrow. In it, he reveals the profound difference between pain and suffering, and in doing so, hands us the power to dramatically reduce the amount of anguish in our lives. He said that to be human is to be periodically struck by an arrow. This is the first arrow. It represents the unavoidable, painful, and difficult aspects of existence that are simply part of the human condition. A first arrow could be a physical pain, like a sudden headache, a chronic illness, or the sharp sting of a stubbed toe. It could be an emotional pain, like the sadness that comes with loss, the disappointment of a plan that fails, or the embarrassment of making a mistake in public. These things happen to everyone. They are, in a sense, not personal. They are part of the shared fabric of life. In the context of our nightly struggles, the first arrow is the simple, raw, biological fact of being awake. It is the physical sensation of a tired body and an alert mind. It is the reality of the present moment. It is 3 a.m. My eyes are open, and sleep is not here. This is the first arrow. It is uncomfortable. It is unwelcome. But in and of itself, it is just a clean wound. It is just pain. The real problem, the Buddha explained, is that we humans are experts at making a bad situation infinitely worse. As soon as the first arrow strikes, we almost invariably reach back into our own quiver and shoot a second arrow directly into the same wound. This second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. It is the layer of judgment, fear, anger, and self-recrimination that we heap upon the original, simple experience. The first arrow is shot by life. The second arrow, cruelly, is shot by our own hand. While the first arrow causes pain, it is the second arrow that causes true, deep, and lasting suffering. Let us look at this in the context of a sleepless night. The first arrow has struck. You are awake. Now, Watch for the flurry of second arrows that the monkey mind immediately begins to launch. The first one is often the arrow of catastrophizing. Your mind paints a vivid and terrifying picture of the future. Because I am awake now, tomorrow will be a complete and utter disaster. I will be too tired to think straight. I will fail at my work. I will be irritable and impatient with my children and my partner. My entire day is already ruined. A simple state of wakefulness is thus transformed into a guaranteed future catastrophe. Another arrow quickly follows, the arrow of self. Blame. What is wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Everyone else in the world can do this simple, natural thing. I am a failure. My body has betrayed me. My mind is my enemy. This arrow is dipped in the poison of shame, and it turns a neutral biological event into a verdict on your self-worth. Then comes the arrow of resistance, of pure anger. I hate this. This shouldn't be happening. This is unfair. We declare war on reality itself, tensing our body, clenching our jaw, fighting a battle that can never be won, because reality will always be what it is. And perhaps the most venomous arrow of all is the arrow of fear. What if this is a sign of something seriously wrong with me? What if I have a terrible illness? What if this insomnia never goes away? What if I am doomed to feel this way forever? Can you see the difference? The pain of the first arrow, the simple wakefulness, is limited, but the suffering caused by this volley of second arrows is boundless. It is a self-inflicted torment that spirals outwards, poisoning the past with regret, the present with anger, and the future with fear. The Buddha's teaching is revolutionary because it tells us that while we may have very little control over the first arrow, we have a tremendous amount of choice when it comes to the second. The first step in learning not to fire the second arrow is to be able to distinguish, in the moment, between pain and suffering. You can do this by asking yourself two simple questions. First, what are the raw, physical sensations present in my body right now? Tune into your body as if you were a neutral scientist. You might notice a feeling of buzzing energy in your chest, a tightness in your shoulders, a warmth in your face, the simple feeling of your heart beating. Just notice these things as pure sensation, without a story. This is the first arrow. It is just physical data. Second, ask yourself, what is the story my mind is telling me about these sensations? Listen to the voice in your head. Is it judging? Is it predicting a terrible future? Is it blaming? Is it resisting? That story, that mental narrative, is the second arrow. The practice is to gently, compassionately, try to disentangle the two. Let the story go for just a moment. Let the words dissolve, and simply rest your awareness on the raw physical sensations. Be with the clean wound of the first arrow, without adding the poison of the second. When you do this, something remarkable happens. The pain might still be there, but the panic, the anguish, the suffering begins to subside. You are no longer adding fuel to the fire. You are simply allowing the initial pain to be what it is, a temporary, impersonal event that will, like all things, eventually pass. The Buddha said that an untaught, ordinary person, when struck by the first arrow, sorrows, grieves, and laments, beats his breast, becomes distraught. As a result, they feel two pains, one physical and one mental. It is like being shot by one arrow and then immediately shooting yourself again. But a well-taught, noble disciple, when struck by the first arrow, does not sorrow or grieve. They understand the nature of reality. They wisely acknowledge the presence of the first arrow, and they resolutely refuse to fire the second. Therefore, they feel only one pain, the physical. Their suffering, in comparison to the ordinary person, is reduced by half, or even more. This is not about becoming unfeeling or cold. The wise person still feels the sharp sting of life's first arrows. They are fully human. They feel sadness, they feel disappointment, They feel physical pain, but they do not torment themselves unnecessarily. They do not turn a difficult moment into a life-defining tragedy. This teaching is a profound act of empowerment. It moves you from the position of a helpless victim to the position of a wise practitioner. You cannot build a wall to protect yourself from all of life's first arrows. You will get sick. People you love will leave you. You will fail. You will have sleepless nights. These are unavoidable, but the second arrow is different. It is in your quiver. Your hand is on the bowstring, and with the gentle light of awareness, you can learn to see the impulse to fire it. You can learn to feel the familiar tension of blame or fear rising within you. And in that precious moment of seeing, you can make a new choice. You can choose to lower the bow. You can choose to leave the second arrow in its quiver. This single, compassionate choice, made again and again, is the path out of suffering and into a state of profound and resilient peace. We have seen how our own minds can wound us with the second arrow, that self-inflicted dart of judgment and fear. We may now ask a crucial question: why do we do this? What is the deep motivation that compels us to react to pain with such a torrent of self-generated suffering? The answer lies in one of the most powerful and persistent illusions of the human mind: the illusion of control. We fire the second arrow because, on some fundamental level, we believe that if we just worry hard enough, analyze fiercely enough, or resist reality strongly enough, we can bend the world to our will. And in no other area of life is this struggle for control more futile and more damaging than in our relationship with sleep. Sleep, by its very nature, is an act of profound surrender. It is a letting go. It is a release of the conscious, striving self into a state of deep rest and oblivion. It is a quiet, trusting fall into the unknown. Control, on the other hand, is an act of will. It is a tightening, a grasping, a holding on. The two are fundamentally incompatible. They are oil and water. To try and control sleep is to try and grasp a shadow. It is to try and command the tide to stop. The very nature of the endeavor guarantees its failure. And in that failure, our anxiety finds fertile ground to grow. Let us examine what actually happens in your body and mind when you try to force yourself to sleep. You are lying in bed, and the thought arises, "I am not sleeping. I must sleep now." That command, "must," is the declaration of a battle. This thought is not a gentle invitation. It is a threat. In response, your brain, ever the faithful servant, triggers the sympathetic nervous system. This is your body's ancient, hardwired alarm system, the fight or flight response, designed to save you from a predator on the savannah. Your adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline, the hormones of stress. Your heart rate begins to quicken. Your breathing becomes more shallow. Your muscles, far from relaxing, begin to tense in preparation for action. Your mind, far from quieting, becomes more alert, more vigilant, scanning for danger. In essence, by trying to force yourself to sleep, you are physically and chemically instructing your body to do the exact opposite. You are preparing for war when what you seek is peace. Psychologically, the effort to control creates a state of performance anxiety. The bed, which should be a sanctuary of rest, is transformed into a stage, and sleep becomes a performance you must execute successfully. You become both the actor and the intensely critical audience. A part of you is trying to relax, while another part is watching, judging, and taking notes. Am I relaxed yet? Is this working? Why isn't it working? My breathing is supposed to be slower. My mind is still racing. I'm failing at this. This hypervigilance, this constant self-monitoring, is the absolute enemy of the surrender that sleep requires. It is like trying to listen for a faint, distant whisper while simultaneously shouting at yourself to listen better. The effort itself creates the noise that drowns out the very thing you wish to hear. This is the silent, exhausting wrestling match that so many of us engage in, night after night, a battle we can never, ever win. Imagine you are at the beach, and you scoop up a large handful of fine, dry sand. Your goal is to keep as much of it as possible. Your first instinct, born of a desire to control, is to clench your fist as tightly as you can. But what happens? The tighter you squeeze, the more forcefully the sand is pushed out through the cracks between your fingers. Your very effort to hold on is what causes you to lose what you have. The only way to hold the sand is to cup your hand gently, to create a soft, receptive, and open space. The sand rests there without struggle. Sleep is exactly like this sand. It cannot be grasped or forced. It will not be held by a clenched fist. It comes only when we create a gentle, open, and receptive space for it to land. It stays not through force of will, but through an absence of struggle. Consider another image. Imagine a shallow pan of water with small ripples on its surface. Your goal is to make the surface perfectly still and smooth, like a mirror. If you try to do this by pressing down on the ripples with your hand, you only create more disturbance. Your fingers create new waves, new agitations. The more you interfere, the more chaotic the surface becomes. The only way for the water to become perfectly still is to withdraw your hand and simply let it be. Left to itself, without interference, the water's own nature will cause it to settle into a state of perfect, glassy stillness. Your mind is this pan of water. Your desperate attempts to flatten the ripples of thought and anxiety only create more waves. The path to a still mind, the path to the peace that precedes sleep, lies in non-interference. It lies in the wisdom of leaving it alone. The antidote to this futile struggle for control is a practice known as radical acceptance. Acceptance, in this context, does not mean defeat or resignation. It is not a passive, shoulder-shrugging "I give up." It is a courageous, wise, and profoundly active engagement with reality as it is. It is the simple, honest acknowledgement of what is true in this present moment. When you are lying awake, unable to sleep, the most powerful and healing thought you can have is this: right now, I am awake. That's it. It is a plain statement of fact, free of judgment, free of fear, free of the story of the second arrow. The power of this simple acceptance is that it ends the war. The moment you accept reality, you stop fighting it. There is no one to wrestle with anymore. The declaration, "I am awake," stops fueling the fight or flight system. It signals to your body and mind that there is no threat, there is no emergency. This is simply the way things are right now. This shift in perspective can be life-altering. You let go of the goal of falling asleep, which was causing all the tension, and you replace it with a new, much gentler intention to rest peacefully while awake. You give yourself permission to simply lie in the dark, to feel the support of the bed beneath you, to enjoy the quiet, and to let your body be still, even if your mind is not. And here is the beautiful paradox. This very act of letting go of the need to sleep, this acceptance of wakefulness, is what creates the perfect, frictionless, pressure-free conditions in which sleep can finally, naturally, and effortlessly arise. There is a story of a young, powerful boatman who needed to get his boat upstream against a strong river current. He set out, full of confidence, and began to row with all his might. His muscles strained, and sweat poured from his brow as he fought the relentless force of the water. Yet for all his heroic effort, he made agonizingly slow progress, and soon he was filled with exhaustion and frustration. Later that day, an old, seemingly frail boatman set out on the same journey. He did not paddle into the ferocious heart of the current. Instead, he skillfully guided his small boat into the slower-moving eddies near the riverbank. He used his oar not for brute force, but for gentle guidance, for steering. He let the river's own complex movements do most of the work, finding the countercurrents that would help push him along. He moved upstream with a quiet grace, and an economy of effort, surrendering to the river's nature and using its own power to his advantage. When we try to force sleep, we are the young boatman, fighting a battle of pure will against a force far greater than ourselves. The path of wisdom is the path of the old boatman. It is to stop fighting the main current of our desire. It is to accept the reality of the river, to learn its ways, and to use skillful, gentle means to navigate it. It is to understand that true power lies not in force, but in surrender, and that in letting go of the illusion of control, we find our way home. We have journeyed inward from the chaotic surface of the mind to its deeper mechanics. We have identified the chattering monkey mind. We have sat by the river of our thoughts, learning not to be swept away. We have felt the sting of the first arrow and seen how we wound ourselves with the second. We have recognized the futility of trying to control that which must be surrendered to. Now, we must go deeper still, to the very source of the river, to the generator that powers the entire machinery of our restlessness. The Buddha's teachings point to three fundamental patterns of the mind, three deep-seated tendencies that act as the fuel for all our suffering. They are known as the three poisons. It is essential to understand that the word poison here is not meant in a moralistic sense, as a sin to be condemned. They are not signs of personal failure or evil. Rather, they are to be seen in a clinical, almost medical way. They are poisons in the sense that they contaminate our perception of reality, they cloud our judgment, and they lead directly to the states of agitation and dissatisfaction that rob us of our peace. These three poisons are the unwholesome roots from which the weeds of anxiety, stress, and insomnia grow. They are known as greed, aversion, and ignorance. To understand them is to hold the diagnostic chart of our own disquiet. The first poison is greed, or craving. In Pali, the language of the early Buddhist texts, the word is lobha. When we hear the word greed, we typically think of a lust for money or material possessions. But its meaning here is far broader and more subtle. It is the mind of more. It is the constant, nagging feeling of insufficiency. It is the voice that whispers, "If only I had that, then I would be happy." It is the engine of desire that is always reaching, always grasping, always leaning into the future, and in doing so, abandoning the present moment. In our modern world, this poison is in the very air we breathe. It is the fuel of consumerism, the driver of relentless ambition, the endless scroll for more information, more validation, more connection. In the quiet of the night, this poison takes on a specific form. It becomes the craving for a particular kind of sleep. We crave a perfect, uninterrupted, 8-hour block of oblivion. We crave a bedroom that is a perfect sensory deprivation chamber, completely silent, perfectly dark, at the exact right temperature. We crave the feeling of instantaneous relaxation the moment our head touches the pillow. When we have a pleasant dream, we crave for it to continue and feel a pang of loss upon waking. This craving, this reaching for an idealized experience that is not present, creates a subtle but powerful tension in the body and mind. The mind that is craving is not a mind at rest. It is a hungry mind, a thirsty mind. The ancient texts describe this as the state of a hungry ghost, a being with a massive, empty stomach and a throat as thin as a needle, forever tormented by desires it can never fulfill. When we lie in bed, craving for a sleep that is not there, we are embodying this state of perpetual, painful tension. The second poison is aversion or hatred. The Pali word is dosa. This is the equal and opposite force to craving. If craving is the mind that pulls, aversion is the mind that pushes. It is the energy of rejection, resistance, and denial. It is the voice that screams, "Get this away from me." It is a declaration of war on our present moment reality. We see this poison manifest in our daily lives as irritation, anger, frustration, and judgment. It is the impatience we feel in a traffic jam, the annoyance at a colleague's habits, the frustration with technology that doesn't work. It is the energy that tightens our jaw and clenches our fists. At night, this poison of aversion becomes a primary tormentor. First and foremost, we feel aversion towards the state of wakefulness itself. We hate that we are not asleep. This hatred is a powerful second arrow, but it doesn't stop there. We then feel aversion towards the symptoms of our wakefulness. We feel the buzzing energy of anxiety in our chest, and we hate it. We feel a thought loop in our mind, and we despise it. We hear the distant sound of a siren or the ticking of a clock, and we are filled with a hot surge of anger. We are pushing away our own experience with all our might. Most painfully, we often turn this aversion inward, developing a hatred for ourselves, for our perceived failure to sleep. We see our own mind as an enemy, a traitor to be fought and conquered. Craving pulls our desired future towards us, creating tension. Aversion violently pushes our unwanted present away, creating even more tension. Both are acts of struggle. Neither is a state of peace. A mind in the grip of aversion is a mind at war, and a battlefield is no place for rest. The third and most fundamental poison is ignorance or delusion. The Pali word is moha. This is the primordial poison, the dark, fertile soil in which the toxic plants of greed and aversion grow. Ignorance here does not mean a lack of information or a low IQ. It refers to a profound, foundational misperception of the true nature of reality. It is like looking at the world through a distorted lens that causes us to make constant errors in judgment. What are we ignorant of? Primarily, we are ignorant of the truth of impermanence. We live as if things are solid, stable, and lasting. Because of this delusion, we desperately cling to pleasant experiences, believing we can make them stay forever, which is the root of craving. And we violently fight against unpleasant experiences, believing they will last forever, which is the root of aversion. When we are lying awake at 4 a.m., the feeling of anxiety can seem like a permanent state, a life sentence. We forget that it is, like all things, a temporary cloud passing through the vast sky of our awareness. We are also ignorant of the nature of self. We have a deep, unexamined belief in a solid, continuous, separate me at the center of our experience. This me becomes the hero or the victim of our story. I am the one who is failing to sleep. My night is ruined. This sense of a solid self makes everything personal, raising the stakes and increasing the suffering. Because we are ignorant of the fluid, selfless, and ever-changing nature of reality, we are constantly trying to arrange the world to please this fictional solid self, grasping at what we think it wants and pushing away what we think it doesn't want. This is the endless, exhausting project of the ego, fueled by the poisons of greed and aversion, all sprouting from the root of ignorance. Imagine that your mind is a wise and powerful king whose only wish is for the peace and well-being of his kingdom, which is your life. But this king has 3 chief advisors whom he has trusted for his entire reign. The first advisor is the treasurer, Lord Greed. He is always whispering in the king's ear, "Your Majesty, the kingdom is not enough. For true security and happiness, we need more gold, more jewels, more land. We must acquire more." The second advisor is the head of the army, General Aversion. He is a paranoid and aggressive man, always shouting, "Your Majesty, that is a threat. That sound from the neighboring village is an insult. That feeling of discomfort is an enemy. We must attack. We must destroy anything that is not perfect." The third and most influential advisor is the Prime Minister, a sly old man named Ignorance. He is the one who interprets all the information for the king. He tells the king that the fleeting pleasure of a new dessert is the secret to lasting happiness, and that the harmless shadow on the wall is a dragon that must be slain. As long as the king listens to these three corrupt advisors, his kingdom is in a state of perpetual turmoil, always wanting, always fighting, always misunderstanding, and never, ever at peace. The journey we are on, the practice of mindfulness, is the process of the king slowly learning to see these advisors for who they are, unreliable, biased, and driven by their own destructive agendas. It is the beginning of the king learning to trust his own innate wisdom, the quiet stillness that lies beneath their frantic, poisonous advice. We have journeyed through the dark and tangled landscape of the restless mind. We have put a name to the chattering monkey. We have witnessed the sting of the second arrow. We have felt the futility of our struggle for control, and we have unearthed the three poisons of greed, aversion, and ignorance that fuel our turmoil. We have, until now, been engaged in a profound act of diagnosis. We have mapped the territory of our own suffering, and now, having understood the nature of the disease, we turn our attention to the medicine. We shift from diagnosis to prescription. And the first, most powerful, and most accessible medicine in the entire pharmacopoeia of the spirit is the human breath. The breath is a miracle we ignore with every passing moment. It is the most loyal companion we will ever have. It is with us from the instant of our birth to the moment of our death. It asks for nothing, and yet it gives us everything. But beyond its life-sustaining properties, the breath holds a unique and profound power as a tool for spiritual practice. It is always, without exception, happening in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot breathe in the future. To be aware of your breath is to be anchored in the now, the only place where life is actually lived. Furthermore, the breath acts as a magical bridge between the conscious and unconscious worlds. It is an automatic, bodily process that we can, at any time, bring under our conscious control. It is the seam that stitches the mind and the body together. For these reasons, the practice of mindfulness of breath, or anapanasati, is the cornerstone of the path to inner peace. It is the direct and potent antidote to the poisons we have just examined. To understand its function, we can use the metaphor of an anchor. Imagine your mind is a small boat on the surface of a vast and turbulent ocean. This is the ocean of samsara, the endless cycle of thought, emotion, and experience. The winds of craving and aversion constantly blow, pushing your little boat this way and that. The thick fog of ignorance rolls in, making it impossible to see where you are going. Without an anchor, the boat is hopelessly adrift, completely at the mercy of the elements, destined to be tossed about endlessly until it is swamped and sinks into despair. The breath is your anchor. The practice of placing your attention on the breath is like letting that heavy anchor drop from the side of the boat, down through the turbulent water, until it finds purchase on the solid ground of the seabed. When the anchor is set, the storm may not cease. The winds will still howl, and the great waves of thought and emotion will still crash against the hull of your boat. But the boat is no longer lost. It is no longer adrift. It has a firm, unwavering reference point. It is tethered to the stability of the present moment. The practice of breath awareness does not promise to instantly calm the ocean of your mind, but it does promise that you can ride out any storm without being swept away. So how do we perform this simple, yet life-altering act of dropping the anchor? The instructions are beautifully, deceptively simple. As you are lying in bed or sitting in a chair, the first step is to gently form the intention to rest your awareness on the physical sensations of your own breathing. There are two primary places where this sensation is most easily found. For some, it is at the tip of the nostrils. You can bring your full, curious attention to this small area and simply feel the air as it enters and leaves your body. You might notice the subtle coolness of the in-breath and the slight warmth of the out-breath. You might feel a faint, tickling sensation as the air brushes against the skin. It is a very delicate, very fine sensation, and resting your attention here can cultivate a deep sense of focus. For many others, an easier place to anchor is the abdomen. You can place a hand gently on your belly or simply bring your mind's eye to that area without any effort on your part. Just by virtue of being alive, you will feel the abdomen gently rise on the inhalation and softly fall on the exhalation. It is a larger, more rhythmic, more noticeable sensation. It is like feeling the gentle swell of a calm sea. It does not matter which location you choose, the nostrils or the abdomen. Pick the one that feels most clear and comfortable for you. Once you have found your spot, the core instruction is this: do nothing, simply observe. You are not trying to control the breath. You are not trying to make it deeper or slower or more spiritual. To do so would be to fall back into the trap of control, to engage in another wrestling match with reality. The practice is to let the body breathe all by itself, as it has been doing its entire life, and your job is simply to watch the show. Become a scientist of your own breath. Observe it with a gentle curiosity. What does this in-breath feel like? Is it long or short? Is it deep or shallow? What does this out-breath feel like? Notice the entire arc of the experience. The very beginning of the in-breath, how it swells in the middle, how it reaches its peak, and the tiny still pause that often follows, before the breath turns. Then, feel the beginning of the exhalation, the gentle release, the softening, the emptying, and again, the moment of stillness before the cycle begins anew. You are giving your chattering monkey mind a single, wholesome, and present moment task to feel one breath completely. Now, what will happen almost immediately is that your mind will wander. This is not a sign of failure. It is simply a sign that you have a human mind. You will be feeling the breath, and a moment later you will find yourself composing an email, replaying a conversation, or worrying about tomorrow. The moment you notice that your mind has wandered, that is the golden moment. That is the moment of mindfulness. It is a moment of victory, not defeat. In that instant of realizing you have been lost in thought, you are no longer lost. So, what do? You practice the gentle return. Without any judgment, without any sigh of frustration or self-criticism, you simply acknowledge, thinking, and then you gently, kindly, and compassionately escort your attention back to the physical sensations of the breath. It is like training a small, adorable puppy. The puppy will constantly wander off to sniff something interesting. You do not scold or punish the puppy. You simply say its name softly and gently guide it back to your side. You will do this 100 times. You will do this 1,000 times. Each time you notice the wandering, and each time you gently return, you are strengthening the muscle of your attention. The wandering is the resistance, and the gentle return is the sacred repetition that builds your inner fortitude. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this relationship. Imagine a young child at a vast, noisy, and chaotic marketplace with his mother. The sights are dazzling, the sounds are deafening, the smells are overwhelming. This is the monkey mind. The child, fascinated by a stall selling colorful, spinning toys, lets go of his mother's hand and wanders over. He becomes completely engrossed. A few minutes later, he looks up and his mother is gone. He is surrounded by a sea of strangers' legs. The noise of the market suddenly becomes terrifying. Panic begins to well up in his chest. He is lost. He is alone. Just as a tear begins to form in his eye, he feels a familiar, gentle, and firm touch on his shoulder. It is his mother's hand. He turns and grabs onto it, burying his face in her side. Instantly, the terror vanishes. The marketplace is still just as loud, just as chaotic, just as overwhelming. But none of it matters anymore. He is safe. He is grounded. He is home. Your breath is that mother's hand. Your mind, like that curious child, will constantly let go to chase, after some interesting thought, some shiny worry, some colorful memory, and you will feel that momentary panic of being lost in the chaos. The practice is simply to learn to recognize the gentle, ever-present touch of the breath, waiting patiently for you. It is always there. And each time you return your awareness to it, you are taking that hand, and you are returning to a place of absolute safety and profound peace, right in the middle of the beautiful, chaotic market of your own life. We have found our anchor in the constant, rhythmic tide of the breath. We have learned that this anchor can tether us to the present moment, offering a safe harbor in the midst of any mental storm. The breath is our primary training ground, the place we return to again and again to strengthen our attention. But the skill we are cultivating on that training ground is not meant to be confined there. The quality of awareness we are developing is meant to be brought into every corner of our lives, to be applied to every experience we have. This quality is called mindfulness. And while it has become a popular word, its true depth is often missed. Mindfulness is not merely about paying attention. It is about paying attention in a very particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. This final quality, non-judgment, is the most challenging and the most transformative part of the practice. Our minds, by default, are relentless judgment machines. They are tireless commentators, critics, and evaluators. The moment a sensation, a thought, or a feeling arises, our mind immediately slaps a label on it. Good, bad, I like this, I hate this, this is right, this is wrong, this is pleasant, this is annoying. This constant stream of judgment is the very factory where the second arrows are forged. A sound is not just a sound, it is an irritating noise that is ruining our peace. A feeling of anxiety is not just a cluster of bodily sensations, it is a terrible and unacceptable state that shouldn't be here. This layer of judgment is the gasoline we pour on the small fires of our discomfort, turning them into raging infernos of suffering. Mindful observation is the practice of stepping back from this factory. It is the cultivation of an awareness that is more like a clear mirror than a harsh critic. A mirror does not judge the face it reflects. It does not say, "You look tired," or "What a beautiful smile." It simply, perfectly, and impartially reflects what is there. To be mindful is to learn to witness our own experience with this same quality of clear, unbiased reflection. Imagine you are lying in bed and a car alarm begins to blare outside. The habitual, judgmental mind immediately launches into a story. Ugh, I can't believe this. Whose stupid car is that? They are so inconsiderate. Now I'll be awake for hours. This is a nightmare. The body tenses, the heart rate climbs, and a state of peace becomes impossible. Now, imagine approaching that same sound with mindful awareness. You would simply note the raw data of the experience. Sound is present. It has a high pitch. It has a pulsing rhythm. Now the rhythm has changed. Now it has stopped. The external event is identical, but the internal experience is radically different. In the first scenario, there is immense suffering, a war with reality. In the second, there is only the simple, non-personal registration of a sensory event. This is the freedom that non-judgmental awareness provides. One of the most crucial applications of this practice lies in learning to distinguish between feeling a feeling and thinking about a feeling. This is a subtle but life-changing distinction. When we are lost in the stream of our habitual mind, we are almost always thinking about our feelings. Let's say a wave of anxiety arises. The thinking mind kicks in immediately. Oh no, there's that anxiety again. I hate this feeling. It always starts in my chest. What if it gets worse? What if I have a panic attack? Why am I like this? I should be stronger. This entire monologue is a conceptual story. It is a narrative about the feeling, a series of second arrows. It is an abstract process that happens entirely in your head, and it serves only to amplify the original discomfort. Mindful observation invites us to do something completely different. It invites us to drop out of the story in our head and to descend into the direct, physical, sensory reality of the feeling in our body. This is the art of directly feeling the feeling. Instead of thinking about anxiety, you bring a curious, scientific attention to the raw sensations of it. You ask, what does this anxiety actually feel like as a pure physical event? You might discover a tightness in your solar plexus, a fluttering sensation in your stomach, a feeling of heat in your face or neck, a tingling in your hands or feet. You explore these sensations without labeling them anxiety or bad. You just note them: tightness, vibration, heat, tingling. You become an explorer of your own inner landscape. When you do this, something magical happens. You begin to realize that the big, solid, terrifying monster you call anxiety is not a single entity at all. It is nothing more than a dynamic, flowing collection of changing physical sensations. It has no solid core. It is not personal. It is just bodily weather. By observing it directly and non-judgmentally, you are no longer adding the fuel of your fearful stories to it. You are simply allowing the weather pattern to move through you. You are discovering that you are not the storm. You are the vast, open sky in which the storm is happening. Let's try a brief exploration right now. As you are lying there, bring your awareness to the simple sense of touch. Feel the actual, physical weight of your body pressing down into the mattress. Don't think about it as heavy or light. Just feel the raw data of pressure. Feel the points of contact, your heels, your calves, your shoulders, the back of your head. Now, bring your attention to the texture of the fabric against your skin. Is it soft? Is it smooth? Just register the sensation without preference. Feel the temperature of the air on your exposed skin. Notice the warmth beneath the blanket. Again, not good warmth or too much warmth, just the pure, impersonal sensation of temperature. Now, open your awareness to the sense of hearing. Let sounds come to you. Don't strain to listen. Simply receive whatever is present in the soundscape of your room. Perhaps it is the low hum of an appliance, the creak of the house settling, or the faint, distant sound of traffic. Receive these sounds as pure vibration, without the labels of annoying or peaceful. They are just sound. By engaging with your direct sensory experience in this way, you are stepping out of the noisy, judgmental factory of the thinking mind and into the quiet, clear, and peaceful field of pure awareness. There is a famous story about Ajahn Chah, a great meditation master from Thailand. He had a particular drinking glass, a simple glass that he used every day. One of his students noticed that he handled this glass with great care and attention. One day, the student asked him, "Ajahn Chah, I notice you are very careful with that glass. What will you do if one day it breaks?" Ajahn Chah looked at the glass and then at the student and smiled. He said, "You see, for me, this glass is already broken." He went on to explain that he understood the true nature of the glass. It was made of fragile material. It was born. It existed for a time, and its nature was to one day break. Because he lived with this deep, non-judgmental acceptance of its reality, he could enjoy it fully and care for it properly while it was here. But when the inevitable day came that it slipped and shattered on the floor, he would not suffer. He would not fire a second arrow of, "Oh no, my favorite glass is ruined. This shouldn't have happened." He would simply say, "Of course." This is the heart of mindful observation. It is learning to see the world and our own experience as already broken, not in a dark or pessimistic way, but in a way that is radically realistic and deeply accepting. Our comfort, our health, our relationships, our very lives are like that glass. Their nature is to be fragile and impermanent. By seeing and accepting this truth without judgment, we can stop fighting a losing battle with reality. We can learn to be with things as they are, and in that acceptance, we find a profound and unshakable peace that does not depend on things being any other way. We have been sitting with our experience, learning to observe it with a clear and non-judgmental eye. We have learned to see our thoughts and feelings as passing events in the river of the mind. This practice of observation, if sustained with gentle persistence, inevitably leads to a profound insight, a direct seeing into one of the most fundamental laws of the universe. It is a law as real and as inescapable as gravity, yet we spend most of our lives denying it, fighting it, and creating immense suffering for ourselves in the process. This is the law of impermanence. In the ancient language of the Buddha, it is called anicca. It is the simple, yet earth-shattering truth that everything changes, nothing is static, nothing lasts forever. This law is not a philosophical speculation, it is an observable fact, written into the fabric of existence at every level. On the grandest scale, we see it in the cosmos. Great mountains are born from the collision of tectonic plates. They stand for millions of years, and yet they are constantly being worn down by wind and rain, eventually becoming dust. Stars are born in fiery nebulae. They shine for eons, and they too die, collapsing into darkness. Civilizations rise, build great monuments, and then crumble, leaving only faint traces in the sand. The entire universe is a vast, dynamic dance of arising and passing away. And this same law governs the intimate universe of our own being. Your body, which feels so solid and so you, is in a state of constant flux. Millions of cells are dying and being born within it every second. The body you have today is not the same body you had 7 years ago, and it is not the same one you will have 7 years from now. It is not a noun, it is a verb, it is a process. And what of our minds? Our minds are even more fluid and changeable. Thoughts flicker in and out of existence, often too quickly to even register. Emotions, which can feel so solid and all-consuming, are like the weather. A storm of anger can rage with thunder and lightning, but it cannot last. It spends its energy and dissolves, perhaps followed by the gentle rain of sadness, and then, eventually, the clear blue sky of peace. Joy visits us, a welcome guest, but it does not move in permanently. It stays for a while, and then it too departs. This is the nature of things. Everything that has a beginning has a middle and an end. The truth of impermanence is not, in itself, a cause of suffering. A rock does not suffer because of erosion. A cloud does not suffer because it turns to rain. The suffering comes entirely from our resistance to this fundamental law. Our ignorance of anicca leads us to live in a fantasy world where we believe things can be made permanent, and so we engage in two futile and exhausting activities. First, we cling. When we experience something pleasanter, happy feeling, a moment of peace, a loving connection, we desperately try to hold on to it, to freeze it in time. We build a fortress around it, hoping to protect it from the river of change. This clinging is a source of constant, low-grade anxiety, because deep down, we know we cannot succeed. And when the pleasant experience inevitably changes, as it must, our clinging turns into the suffering of loss and grief. Second, we push away. When we experience something unpleasanter, painful sensation, a difficult emotion like fear, a state of restless wakefulness, we resist it with all our might. We believe that if we fight it hard enough, we can banish it forever. But this resistance is like trying to build a dam against the entire ocean. It is an exhausting and doomed battle. Our aversion, our hatred for the unpleasant experience, is based on the fearful delusion that it will last forever. When we are lying in bed at 3 in the morning, caught in the grip of anxiety, a part of our mind tells a terrifying story. It is the story of forever. I will never get to sleep. This feeling of panic will never end. I will always feel this way. It is this belief in the permanence of our pain that makes it truly unbearable. It transforms a difficult moment into a life sentence. The wisdom of impermanence is the direct antidote to this poison of forever. It is a tool of profound liberation that we can apply in any moment of difficulty. The practice is to meet the unpleasant experience, not with more resistance, but with a quiet, internal whisper of truth. This is impermanent. When a wave of anxiety washes over you, instead of tensing up and fighting it, you can soften your body and acknowledge this feeling of anxiety is here. It is unpleasant and it is impermanent. It has arisen and it will pass away. When you are tormented by a loop of repetitive thoughts, you can observe them and know these thoughts are here, they are noisy, and they are impermanent. They will change. This is not a trick. It is not a form of positive thinking designed to paper over your pain. It is a radical act of aligning yourself with reality. The moment you acknowledge the impermanent nature of your suffering, you stop feeding it with the powerful fuel of your resistance. You stop giving it the credibility of believing its story of forever. A space opens up around the difficult feeling. The tight, clenched fist of your mind begins to relax its grip. You move from being a prisoner trapped inside a solid, windowless cell of despair to being an observer watching a dark cloud move across the infinite sky of your awareness. You know that no matter how dark or menacing the cloud, the sky is always vaster, and the cloud will, in its own time, pass. At first, the law of impermanence might sound like a sad or nihilistic truth. It means the good times don't last. But that is only seeing one side of the coin. The other side, the profoundly hopeful and liberating side, is that the bad times don't last either. Pain is temporary, sorrow is temporary, despair is temporary. A long, dark, sleepless night is temporary. The sun will rise. The state of your body and mind will change. To understand anicca is to cultivate a deep sense of equanimity. It teaches us to savor the beautiful moments of life with a poignant gratitude, knowing they are precious precisely because they are fleeting. And it teaches us to endure the difficult moments with a patient, courageous grace, knowing that they are temporary visitors, not permanent residents of our mind. There is an ancient story, often told in the Sufi tradition, about a great and powerful king who was master of a vast empire. Despite his power and wealth, he was subject to wild swings of emotion, from ecstatic joy to crushing despair. One day, he summoned all the wise men of his court. "I want you to create a ring for me," he commanded. "It must be a very special ring. I want you to engrave something on it, a message that has the power to sober me when I am lost in celebration, and the power to give me hope when I am lost in sorrow. It must work in every situation." The wise men were perplexed, but they went away and consulted with one another. Finally, they returned to the king and presented him with a simple gold band. The king looked at it and saw etched upon its surface just 4 words: "This too shall pass." From that day on, the ring became his most treasured possession. In moments of glorious victory, he would look at the ring and it would remind him of humility. In moments of devastating loss, he would look at the inscription and it would remind him of hope. The wisdom of impermanence is that ring. It is a teaching you can carry with you into every moment of your life. It is the ultimate perspective, the final context for all of our joys and all of our sorrows. It is the understanding that allows us to finally stop fighting the river of life and instead learn to flow with it, with wisdom, with grace, and with a deep and unshakable peace. Having seen the profound truth of impermanence, that all things arise and pass away, we arrive at a vital turning point in our journey. If we truly and deeply understand that everything is like a flowing river, that nothing can be held onto, then what is the wisest way to live? What is the skillful response to this universal law of change? The answer is a practice that lies at the very heart of freedom and peace. It is the practice of non-attachment. In the ancient texts, this is connected to the concept of nekama, which can be translated as renunciation, but a gentler and more useful way for us to understand it is as the art of letting go. Now, the moment we hear the words non-attachment or letting go, our minds often conjure up a cold and unappealing image. We might imagine a person who is aloof, indifferent, uncaring, and disengaged, from life a kind of passionless robot. It is crucial to understand from the very beginning that this is a complete misunderstanding of the teaching. True non-attachment is not apathy, it is not nihilism. It is not a denial of love or a refusal to engage with the world. In fact, it is the very path to engaging with the world more fully, more freely, and with a deeper and more sustainable love. The key to understanding non-attachment is to see the subtle but profound difference between caring and clinging. Caring is a beautiful, wholesome quality. It is open-handed. To care about your health, your work, your family, or your community is to engage with them with warmth, wisdom, and skillful effort. Clinging, on the other hand, is a state of fear. It is a clenched fist. It takes the wholesome energy of caring and adds a layer of desperate, anxious demand. It is the voice that says, "I care about this, and therefore it must be the way I want it to be." Imagine you are tending a garden. To care for the garden is to prepare the soil, to plant the seeds with attention, to provide water, and to gently remove the weeds. This is wise, loving effort. Clinging, however, would be to demand that the garden produce exactly 100 perfect, unblemished tomatoes by the 1st of August. You would then live in a state of constant anxiety, watching the sky for any sign of hail, inspecting every leaf for pests, and when a few tomatoes turn out small or misshapen, you would be filled with rage and despair. The wise gardener understands that their role is to provide the best possible conditions, but they do not control the weather, the insects, or the ultimate outcome. They care deeply, but they do not cling to the results. Non-attachment is the wisdom of this gardener, ability to pour your heart into your efforts while gracefully accepting the results, whatever they may be. This is the exact wisdom we must bring to the delicate act of falling asleep. The wholesome desire, the caring part, is simply, I would like my body and mind to get the rest they need. There is nothing wrong with this wish. It is a sign of self-respect. But attachment, the clinging fist, transforms this gentle wish into a violent demand. I must fall asleep right now. If I don't, it is a catastrophe, a personal failure. Can you feel the difference? The first is a soft invitation. The second is a declaration of war. And it is this clinging demand, this attachment to the outcome, that is the very source of the tension that prevents sleep. The more desperately you cling to the goal of sleep, the more you ensure it will not come. So, what is the practice? It is to consciously and intentionally shift your goal. It is a beautiful and subtle act of mental jujitsu. The practice is to completely let go of the goal of falling asleep and to replace it with a much kinder, more achievable goal, to rest. You cannot force yourself to sleep. That is outside of your direct control. But you can, absolutely, choose to rest. Resting is a goal you can succeed at 100% of the time. What does it mean to rest? It means allowing your body to be still. It means letting your muscles be as soft as they can be. It means allowing your head to be supported by the pillow and your body to be supported by the bed. It means you stop thrashing, both physically and mentally. You give your body permission to lie quietly and peacefully, even if your mind is still active. When you make this shift, from trying to sleep to succeeding at resting, the entire dynamic changes. The performance anxiety vanishes There is no longer a test you can fail. You are already accomplishing your goal simply by lying still. The bed ceases to be a battlefield and becomes, once again, a sanctuary for rest. You are no longer fighting with reality, you are aligning with it. You are providing the perfect, gentle, pressure-free conditions for your body to do what it knows how to do. And in this space of non-attached, peaceful resting, sleep is no longer a prize to be hunted and captured. It becomes a shy visitor that, feeling safe and unthreatened, may finally decide to emerge from the shadows on its own. The freedom is in releasing the outcome. There is a timeless story from India that perfectly illustrates the self-imprisoning nature of clinging. To catch a monkey, a trapper will take a coconut or a hollow gourd and drill a hole in it, just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. Inside the coconut, the trapper places a handful of sticky, sweet rice. The trap is then chained to a stake driven deep into the ground. Soon enough, a monkey, drawn by the scent of the rice, will come along. It slips its hand easily through the hole and grasps the delicious prize. But now, with its hand clenched into a fist around the rice, it cannot withdraw its hand from the coconut. The hole that was large enough for an open hand is too small for a closed fist. The monkey pulls and screeches, it thrashes and fights, but it is stuck fast. When the trappers approach, the monkey becomes frantic, yet it will not let go of the rice. It is free to go at any second. All it has to do is open its hand, release the prize, and it can slip its hand out and escape to the safety of the trees. But its craving, its attachment, its desperate clinging to that handful of rice is so powerful that it will not let go, even to save its own life. It is not the coconut that traps the monkey. It is the monkey's own clinging fist. When we lie in bed, tormented by our inability to sleep, we are that monkey. The sweet rice is the idea of a perfect, peaceful night's sleep. Our desperate demand for it, our attachment to that outcome, is our own clenched fist. The sleeplessness, the anxiety, the struggle, this is the trap. And we are held there, not by any external force, but by our own refusal to let go. We could be free from the suffering in an instant. The moment we open our hand, the moment we let go of the demand and simply accept the reality of the present moment, the trap loses its power. Freedom is not in getting the rice. Freedom is in the opening of the hand. It is the wisdom of non-attachment, the spacious peace that comes when we stop clinging and finally allow life to be what it is. We have learned to see the wisdom in impermanence, to find peace in the ever-changing flow of reality. We have practiced the art of non-attachment, of letting go of our clenched fist demand on life and on sleep. This leads us to a fascinating and deeply liberating question. We are letting go of our attachment to our thoughts. But who or what are these thoughts in the first place? Where do they come from? And are they really ours at all? We have a deeply conditioned habit of taking every event in our mind personally. A thought of sadness arises, and we say, "I am sad." A thought of failure appears, and we conclude, "I am a failure." We experience our thoughts not as fleeting mental weather, but as definitive statements about who we are. This act of personalization is what gives a thought its sharp and painful sting. But what if this entire way of relating to our mind is based on a fundamental mistake? What if our thoughts are not personal attacks, but impersonal events? There is a timeless story attributed to the great Taoist sage, Zhuangzi, that shines a brilliant light on this question. It is the story of the empty boat. A man, seeking a moment of peace, takes his small boat out onto a wide, tranquil river. It is a beautiful, misty morning, and as he rows, he feels a sense of calm and contentment settling over him. He is alone with the water and the sky, and for a moment, all is right with the world. Suddenly, his peace is shattered by a loud thud and a jolt. Another boat has collided with his. He is filled with a hot surge of anger. His heart pounds, his face flushes, He stands up and begins to shout at the other boat, unleashing a torrent of insults at the careless fool who has so rudely disrupted his serenity. He calls the other boatman clumsy, idiotic, and blind. His mind, which was just a calm lake, is now a raging storm of blame and indignation. He is preparing to shout again, to escalate the conflict, when the mist begins to part. As the fog clears, he looks into the other boat, and he sees that it is empty. There is no boatman. There is no one to blame. The boat had simply broken loose from its moorings upstream and had been carried down by the current, an impersonal object following the natural flow of the river. In that instant, Zhuangzi tells us, the man's anger vanished completely. It simply evaporated. It had nowhere to go. How can you be angry at an empty boat? Who is there to shout at? Who is there to blame? The object of his rage was a phantom. Seeing the truth, the man simply took a deep breath, used his oar to push the empty boat away, and quietly continued on his journey. The storm in his mind was over. This simple story is a profound teaching about the nature of our own minds. We are the man in the boat, seeking peace on the river of life. The other boats that collide with us, disrupting our peace, are our own thoughts, especially the difficult and painful ones. When a thought arises that is critical or judgmental, you are not good enough, you always mess things up, you should be ashamed of yourself. Our immediate, conditioned reaction is to believe that there is a boatman in that boat. We believe there is a malicious inner critic, a cruel captain, intentionally steering that boat into us to cause us harm. And so we react with anger, with defense, or with shame. We get into a long, exhausting argument with this phantom boatman. We shout back at our inner critic. We try to prove it wrong, or we collapse under the weight of its judgment. We are yelling at a boatman that we have invented. When a wave of anxiety hits us, a boat filled with fearful thoughts like, what if this happens? Or what if that goes wrong? We believe there is a neurotic, broken warrior at the helm. We see this part of ourselves as a flaw, an enemy to be silenced or fixed. We get angry at our anxiety. We hate it for being there. We see it as a personal failing. We are, once again, shouting at a boatman, trying to wrestle control of a boat that we believe is being steered badly. The wisdom of the empty boat offers a revolutionary alternative. It invites us to look deeply into these boats that collide with us and to see if there is actually anyone at the helm. When that critical thought, you are a failure, drifts into your awareness, can you look at it and see it not as a personal attack, but as an empty boat? It is simply a collection of words and feelings, a piece of old conditioning, perhaps a memory of a parent's voice or a teacher's criticism from long ago. It has broken loose from the moorings of the past and is simply drifting through the stream of your consciousness. It has no pilot. It has no malicious intent. It is an impersonal, conditioned event. There is no boatman. There is no inner critic. There is only an empty boat. The central practice becomes asking that one simple question: how can you be angry at an empty boat? When you truly see the thought as an impersonal, empty vessel, the anger has nowhere to land. The shame has no one to stick to. The fear has no one to terrorize. The entire drama of self-judgment collapses under the weight of this simple truth. You do not need to fight the thought. You do not need to fix the thought. You do not need to analyze where the boat came from or why it broke loose. You simply see it for what it is: an empty boat bumping into you in the dark, and you gently push it away, returning your attention to your own journey, to the feeling of your own breath. Think of the voice of your inner critic as a terrible roommate. This roommate constantly leaves little, unsigned, passive-aggressive notes around your apartment. You wake up, and there's a note on the mirror. You look tired and old. You finish a project, and a note appears on your desk. You probably could have done that better. You lie down to rest, and a note slides under the door. You are wasting your life. We can spend years of our lives arguing with this phantom roommate. We leave angry notes back. We plead with the roommate to be nicer. We feel wounded and diminished by their constant criticism. The empty boat teaching is the realization that there is no roommate. The notes are just appearing. They are drifting in through the mail slot, carried on the winds of conditioning. There is no one writing them. So who would you argue with? Who are you trying to convince? The entire conflict is with a ghost of your own making. This is a practice you can bring into your night tonight. When you are lying there and a familiar, painful thought drifts, inner thought of worry, of regret, of self-criticism tree, not to board that boat and argue with its phantom captain. Instead, see if you can watch it from the safety of your own vessel. See it as what it is, an empty boat drifting by. You can even label it softly in your mind, an empty boat. And then, you let it drift on down the river as you return your attention to the anchor of your breath, to the feeling of your body resting. This practice of depersonalization is an act of profound self-compassion. It drains the poison from our most painful thoughts. They are no longer arrows aimed at our heart, but simply pieces of driftwood floating in the stream. By learning not to take our own minds so personally, we discover a new and spacious way of being with ourselves, a way that is not defined by internal conflict, but by a quiet, knowing, and unshakable peace. We have spent much of our journey exploring the inner world of the mind, learning to see our thoughts as empty boats and our feelings as passing weather. Now, we turn our attention to the ground in which the mind is rooted, the physical body. In our modern lives, we often treat the body as little more than a vehicle for carrying our head from one meeting to another. We live from the neck up, lost in a world of concepts, plans, and worries, largely disconnected from the rich, vibrant, and often wise world of physical sensation. But our experiences are not just stored in our heads. Our joys, our sorrows, our fears, and our stresses are all woven into the very fabric of our being. The body keeps the score. Think of your body as a long, thick rope. Throughout your life, every time you experience stress, every time you feel anxious, every time you hold back an emotion, you unconsciously tie a tiny, tight knot somewhere in that rope. A difficult conversation ties a knot in your jaw. A deadline at work ties a knot in your shoulders. A lingering worry ties a knot in your stomach. Over the years, this rope becomes filled with hundreds, even thousands, of these small, unseen knots. We are not even aware they are there, but collectively, they make the roper body stiff, inflexible, and heavy. The practice we are about to explore, the body scan, is a method for gently and systematically running our awareness, like a warm and loving hand, along the entire length of this rope. It is not an attempt to force the knots open. Rather, the simple act of touching each knot with the light of kind, non-judgmental attention is what allows it to soften, to loosen, and to dissolve all on its own. It is a profound journey of coming home to ourselves. This is not an exercise in striving. The goal is not even to feel relaxed. The goal is simply to feel, to experience whatever sensations are present in your body, exactly as they are. Relaxation is often a beautiful byproduct, but if we make it the goal, it becomes another source of performance anxiety. So let go of any agenda. There is no right or wrong way to feel. Numbness is a feeling. Tingling is a feeling. Tension is a feeling. Your only task is to be a gentle, curious witness. So, as you lie there, allow yourself to settle into a posture of rest. Let your arms rest comfortably by your sides, your legs uncrossed. Gently allow your eyes to close. Take a few slow, easy breaths, and with each exhalation, give yourself permission to arrive more fully in this moment, in this bed, in this body. Now, bring your attention, like a soft spotlight, all the way down to your feet. Begin with your left foot. Without moving it, simply bring your awareness into the toes of your left foot. Can you feel your big toe, the second toe, the third, fourth, and little toe. You may feel warmth, or coolness, or tingling, or perhaps nothing at all. Whatever is there is perfectly fine. Just notice. Now, expand your awareness to include the sole of your left foot, the part that has carried you through so many days. Feel the heel, where it makes contact with the bed. Feel the arch and the top of the foot. Allow your awareness to saturate this entire foot, holding it in a kind and gentle attention. And now, let us introduce the breath into this process. As you breathe in, imagine the breath traveling all the way down your body into your left foot. And as you breathe out, imagine the breath flowing out from the foot, carrying with it any tension, any tiredness. A soft in-breath flowing in, a gentle out-breath letting go. Now, shift the soft spotlight of your awareness to your right foot. Once again, begin with the toes. Feel the big toe, the second, the third, fourth, and fifth. Feel the sole of the right foot, the ball of the foot, the heel, the top of the foot. Simply registering, simply feeling, without any need to change anything. Breathing in, let the breath fill the right foot. Breathing out, a sense of softening, of releasing. Gently draw your awareness upward now, into your lower legs, your left ankle, your shin, your calf muscle. This is a part of the body that works so hard for us, yet receives so little attention. Just for a moment, let it be the center of your universe. Feel the sensations within it. Then the left knee, the front of the knee, the back of the knee, and the large, powerful muscle of the left thigh. As you breathe in, feel this entire left leg being filled with awareness. As you breathe out, allow it to feel just a little heavier, a little more relaxed. Now, bring that same curious attention to your right leg, the right ankle, the shin, the calf, the right knee, and the right thigh. Breathing into the entire right leg, and as you breathe out, simply letting go. Let your awareness now gather in the pelvic region. Feel your hips, your buttocks, the whole area that supports the weight of your torso. Feel the gentle, rhythmic rocking as you breathe. Then, guide your attention to your lower back, an area where so much tension is often stored. Do not try to fix it. Do not judge it. Simply bring a kind awareness to it. Breathing into the lower back and breathing out, inviting it to soften. Let the awareness flow up your spine, vertebra by vertebra, into your mid-back and your upper back. And now, bring your attention around to your abdomen. Feel the gentle rise of the belly as you breathe in and the soft fall as you breathe out. There is no need to control this. Just rest your mind on this simple, life-affirming rhythm. Let your awareness expand into your chest. Feel the subtle movement of your ribs. Perhaps you can feel the steady, faithful beating of your heart within your chest, a rhythm that has been with you your entire life. Rest here for a moment in the center of your being. Now, let your awareness flow down your left arm, from the shoulder, down the upper arm, through the elbow, into the forearm, the wrist, and into your left hand. Pay close attention here. Feel the palm of the hand, the back of the hand, and then, if you can, feel each finger individually. The thumb, the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, and the little finger. Feel the whole left hand, perhaps buzzing with a subtle energy. Then, shift your focus to your right arm, the shoulder, the upper arm, the elbow, the forearm, the wrist, and the right hand, the palm, the back of the hand, and each finger, the thumb, the index, the middle, the ring, and the little finger, feeling both hands now, both arms, resting, heavy and soft. Gently guide your attention into your neck and throat, an area that can hold so much tension. As you breathe out, see if you can invite the muscles of your neck to soften, to release. And now, bring your awareness to your face, the part of you that you present to the world. Begin with your jaw. So often, we clench our jaw without realizing it. See if you can allow a little space between your upper and lower teeth. Let your tongue rest softly in your mouth. Feel your lips, your cheeks, the small, delicate muscles around your eyes. Invite them to soften. Let your forehead become smooth and wide. And finally, bring your awareness to your entire scalp and the very top of your head. For a final moment, let go of focusing on any one part and feel your entire body as a single, unified field of sensation. From the tips of your toes to the top of your head, feel your whole body lying here, breathing. Feel the gentle waves of the breath moving through this whole, complete, living organism. You are not a collection of parts. You are a unified whole, and you are at rest. There is nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, nothing to fix. Simply rest in this open, spacious awareness, allowing whatever comes next, be it sleep or continued stillness, to arise all on its own. We have traveled deep into the body, using our awareness as a gentle light to discover and release the hidden knots of tension we carry. This journey, like all the practices we have explored, requires a certain kind of energy, and our relationship with the concept of effort is one of the most important things we can examine on this path to peace. In our culture, effort is often associated with force, with struggle, with a kind of heroic, teeth-gritting determination. We are taught to push through the pain, to grind it out, to conquer our limitations through sheer willpower. While this approach might have its place in lifting heavy weights, when we apply this same aggressive energy to the delicate inner world of our own mind, it becomes a source of immense suffering. It creates more tension, more struggle, and more restlessness. The Buddhist path offers a profoundly different vision of effort. It is called right effort, or samma vayama. This is not the effort of a warrior charging into battle, but the wise, balanced, and sustainable energy of a gardener tending to their plants. It is not about force, but about skill. It is not about tension, but about persistence. It is an effort that is infused with kindness, patience, and a deep understanding of harmony. There is a beautiful story that perfectly illustrates this principle. It is the story of a monk named Sona, who had been a gifted musician before dedicating his life to spiritual practice. Sona was practicing with extreme, relentless effort. He was meditating with such intensity that he neglected his health, and he practiced walking meditation so much that the soles of his feet cracked and bled. Yet for all this heroic struggle, his mind was no closer to peace. He was filled with frustration and despair, and was on the verge of giving up the practice entirely, believing he was a failure. The Buddha, having perceived Sona's state of mind, came to him and asked a simple question. "Sona," he said, "before you became a monk, you were a master of the lute, were you not?" Sona acknowledged that he was. The Buddha continued, "Tell me, Sona, what happens if you tune the strings of your lute too tightly?" Sona, understanding his craft, replied, "Venerable sir, if the strings are too tight, they will produce a sharp and unpleasant sound, and they are very likely to break." "And what happens," the Buddha asked, "if you tune the strings too loosely?" "If the strings are too loose," Sona said, "they will not produce any sound at all, or it will be dull and lifeless." The Buddha then asked the final question, "So Sona, to create a beautiful, resonant, and harmonious sound, what must you do?" Sona replied, "To create beautiful music, the strings must be tuned just right. They must be not too tight and not too loose." The Buddha smiled. "Exactly so, Sona. And the practice of liberating the mind is just like tuning your lute. If your effort is too tense, too strained, it will only create more restlessness and agitation. If your effort is too lax, too lazy, you will drift into dullness and complacency. The energy of your practice must be balanced. It must be tuned just right. This wisdom of the well-tuned lute is the essence of right effort. It is the middle way between the two extremes of aggressive striving and passive resignation. So how do we tune our effort? The teachings offer a practical guide, a way of tending the garden of our mind that is comprised of 4 interconnected fields of practice. The first is the effort to prevent. This is the wisdom of the gatekeeper. It is the gentle, proactive effort to prevent unwholesome states of mind like anxiety, anger, or craving from arising in the first place. In a practical sense, this means becoming more conscious of what we allow into our minds. It means recognizing that what we consume becomes the substance of our thoughts. If we spend the hour before bed doom scrolling through negative news or engaging in a stressful argument online, we are actively planting the seeds of anxiety and agitation in the garden of our mind. It is no surprise when those weeds sprout at 2 in the morning. The effort to prevent is the wise choice to not plant those seeds. It is choosing to listen to calming music, to read a chapter of a gentle book, to have a kind conversation, or to simply sit in silence. It is the wisdom of protecting your own peace. The second is the effort to abandon. This is the work of the gardener who finds that weeds have already sprouted. An unwholesome state, a surge of panic, a loop of self-criticism, a feeling of frustration has already arisen in the mind. Our habitual effort is to either fight it aggressively or to let it run wild. Right effort is different. It is the gentle intention to let it go. This does not mean suppressing it or pushing it away violently. It means applying the tools we have been learning. We see the thought as an empty boat. We recognize its impermanent nature. We feel it in the body without judgment. And we gently, compassionately return our attention to the anchor of the breath. Each time we do this, we are gently removing a weed from the garden. We are not yanking it out with a force that disturbs all the soil around it. We are skillfully and kindly loosening its roots until it can be lifted away. The third is the effort to cultivate. This is the joyful work of planting flowers. It is the active and intentional cultivation of wholesome states of mind. What are these wholesome states? They are qualities like calm, focus, joy, curiosity, and, most importantly, kindness. Every time you consciously choose to return your attention to your breath, you are cultivating focus. Every time you perform the body scan, you are cultivating calm and self-awareness. It is the effort of turning your mind, again and again, toward that which is nourishing and healing. It is choosing to consciously water the seeds of peace that are already present within you, waiting for your attention. The fourth and final field is the effort to maintain. This is the work of the gardener tending to the flowers that have begun to bloom. Once a wholesome state has arisen, perhaps a moment of deep calm during the body scan, or a brief, quiet gap between your thoughts, right effort means learning to notice it, to appreciate it, and to let it linger. Our minds are often so habituated to drama that we can feel a moment of peace and immediately jump to the next worry. The effort to maintain is the gentle intention to rest in that peaceful moment for just a little longer. It is savoring the quiet. It is allowing the feeling of calm to settle and spread through your body. It is not about clinging to the peace, but simply allowing it to be fully present for as long as it lasts. It is letting your beautiful flowers have the sun and space they need to flourish. These 4 efforts might sound complex, but they all come together in the single, simple act of our practice. When you are lying in bed and you notice that your mind has wandered into a familiar worry loop, that moment of noticing is everything. The gentle choice to guide your attention back to the feeling of your breath is the perfect embodiment of right effort. In that one gesture, you are abandoning the unwholesome state of worry. You are preventing that worry from spiraling into a full-blown catastrophe narrative. You are cultivating the wholesome state of focused attention, and you are maintaining your commitment to the practice. It is all there in that one small, repeated act of kindness towards yourself. It is the art of tuning the lute, of finding that perfect balance note, too tight, not too loose, that allows the beautiful music of peace to finally resonate through your entire being. This is not the effort of a harsh drill sergeant. It is the warm, steady, and unwavering effort of a deep and abiding kindness. We have been exploring the quality of our effort, learning to tune the strings of our practice so they are not too tight and not too loose. We have discovered that the energy of this path is not one of force, but one of gentle persistence. Now, we must turn to the very heart of this gentleness. We must explore the emotional tone, the climate in which all of our practice can flourish. For even the most diligent effort, if performed in a cold and critical inner environment, will not lead to peace. The missing ingredient, the quality that softens everything, is kindness. Specifically, it is the practice of cultivating a boundless, unconditional, and heartfelt friendliness towards ourselves and all of life. In the Pali language, this is called metta. It is often translated as loving kindness. This is not the romantic love of a partner or the transactional love of an acquaintance. It is not a feeling we wait to receive from the outside world. It is a quality of heart that we can actively, intentionally cultivate like a muscle. It is a steady, quiet, and profound wish for well-being. And the most important and often the most difficult place to begin this practice is with ourselves. When we are struggling, when we are in pain, when we are lying awake at night feeling frustrated and broken, the last person we typically offer kindness to is ourself. In these moments of vulnerability, our inner critic often becomes a merciless tyrant. We attack ourselves for our perceived failures. We judge ourselves for our anxiety. We become angry at our own bodies and minds. We become our own worst enemy at the exact moment we most need a friend. The practice of metta is the direct, powerful, and healing antidote to this habit of inner cruelty. Many of us, particularly in the Western world, may feel a certain resistance to the idea of self-compassion. It can feel selfish, self-indulgent, even narcissistic. We are taught to be tough on ourselves, to focus on our flaws in order to improve. But this is a profound misunderstanding of the nature of the heart. True compassion is not a finite resource that we use up on ourselves. It is a boundless wellspring. The Buddha taught that you can search the entire universe and not find a single being more deserving of your compassion than yourself. This is not a call to selfishness. It is a recognition of a fundamental truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If your own heart is a cold and barren landscape of self-criticism, what true warmth can you possibly offer to another? If you are at war with yourself, how can you be an agent of peace in the world? Think of the safety instructions on an airplane. The flight attendant always instructs you, in the event of a loss of cabin pressure, to put on your own oxygen mask first before attempting to help others. This is not selfish, it is wise. If you faint from lack of oxygen, you are of no use to anyone, least of all the child sitting next to you. Self-compassion is your oxygen mask. It is the necessary foundational act of kindness that allows you to be a source of strength and warmth for others. It is not self-pity, which isolates us in our story of poor me. Self-compassion is a recognition of our shared humanity. It sees a moment of suffering and says, not why me, but this is a moment of suffering. This is part of what it means to be human. And in that recognition, it offers kindness instead of judgment. So how do we practice this? How do we put on our own oxygen mask when we are feeling lost in the dark? We can use a traditional method of repeating a series of phrases, like gentle prayers or wishes for our own well-being. As you are lying there, you can even place a hand gently over your heart, a simple physical gesture of self-connection and warmth. The practice is to silently, slowly repeat these phrases, trying to feel the heartfelt intention behind the words. The first phrase is, "May I be safe." This is a wish for safety from outer harm, of course. But more deeply, it is a wish to be safe from the harm of our own mind. safe from the brutal attacks of our inner critic, safe from the terrifying stories our anxiety tells us. It is a wish to find a place of sanctuary within ourselves. May I be safe. The second phrase is, may I be healthy. This is a wish for the health of the body, for it to be strong and free from disease. But it is also a wish for a healthy mind, a mind that is resilient, clear, and balanced. It is a wish for wholeness. May I be healthy. The third phrase is, may I be free from suffering. This is a deep wish for liberation, a wish to be free from the inner torment of anxiety, from the pain of anger and resentment, from the heavy weight of sorrow. It is a heartfelt prayer for our own peace. May I be free from suffering. And the final phrase is, may I live with ease. This does not mean a life free from all difficulty. It means a wish to be able to move through life's challenges with a sense of grace, balance, and acceptance. It is a wish for an inner sense of well-being that is not dependent on external conditions. It is the wish to be at peace with life, just as it is. May I live with ease. The practice is simply to repeat these phrases over and over as a gentle lullaby for your own heart. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I live with ease. At first, it may feel mechanical or insincere. This is perfectly normal. Do not judge this. Simply continue the practice. The intention is what matters. Like water dripping on a stone, the persistent, gentle repetition of these phrases of kindness will eventually soften even the hardest heart. To understand the unconditional nature of this kindness, we can look to the example of the Buddha himself. There is a story of a monk named Tissa who was suffering from a horrific disease. His body was covered in oozing sores, and his robes had become stuck to his skin with pus and blood. The smell was so foul that the other monks, overcome with disgust, would not go near him. They left him utterly alone in his misery and filth. The Buddha, seeing this monk's wretched state with his compassionate eye, went to the place where he lay. He did not offer mere words of comfort. He began to boil water. With his own hands, the Buddha gently washed the sick monk's body, cleaning his sores and carefully soaking his robes to free them from his raw skin. As he tended to this monk that everyone else had rejected, he turned to the others and said, "Whoever would tend to me should tend to the sick." This is metta in action. It is a love that does not turn away from that which is difficult, unpleasant, or impure. It is a compassion that moves towards suffering, not away from it. And this is the quality of kindness we are invited to offer ourselves. When we are lying awake, feeling broken, anxious, and disgusted with our own restless mind, we are that sick monk. Our habitual tendency is to abandon ourselves, to turn away in frustration. The practice of metta is the choice to become our own Buddha. It is the choice to gently, with our own awareness, bathe our own wounds. It is the willingness to stay with ourselves, to offer comfort and care, precisely when we feel most unworthy of it. This practice of loving kindness is like a gentle spring rain falling on hard, dry, and cracked earth. It softens everything. It melts the sharp, frozen edges of our anxiety, our frustration, and our self-criticism. It may not solve all our problems overnight, but it completely changes our relationship to them. We are no longer at war with ourselves. We are, perhaps for the first time, learning to become our own best and most faithful friend. We have been assembling a collection of powerful and gentle tools for the mind and heart. We have the anchor of the breath, the gentle light of the body scan, the balanced energy of right effort, and the profound warmth of loving kindness. As we gather these practices, a subtle danger can emerge. We can begin to relate to these teachings as a new set of rules to perfect, a new identity to construct. We can start to think of ourselves as a meditator and measure our success or failure. This tendency to solidify the path into a new source of pride or anxiety is a very common trap. It is as if we escape one prison only to build a new, more spiritual-looking one for ourselves. The Buddha, with his immense wisdom and foresight, understood this human tendency perfectly. He knew that even his own most profound teachings could become another object of clinging, another burden for the mind to carry. To guard against this danger, he offered one of his most important and liberating metaphors, the parable of the raft. He asked his disciples to imagine a person on a journey. This person arrives at the edge of a great expanse of water, a vast and dangerous flood. The shore where they stand is perilous, filled with fear and uncertainty. The far shore, which they can see in the distance, is safe, secure, and peaceful. But there is no bridge to cross and no ferryman to take them. The traveler does not despair or give up. Instead, using wisdom and right effort, they gather whatever materials are at hand: grass, twigs, branches, and vines. They work diligently, binding these materials together, and construct for themselves a simple, functional raft. Then, relying on the raft they have built and paddling with their own hands and feet, they bravely cross the dangerous water and arrive, safe and sound, on the far shore. The Buddha then posed a critical question to his followers. "What, monks," he asked, "should this wise person do with the raft?" Should they, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and attachment, think to themselves, "This raft has been of such immense help to me. I could not have made it without it. I must not abandon it"? Should they then hoist the raft onto their head and shoulders and continue their journey on dry land, carrying it with them wherever they go? The monks replied, "No, venerable sir, that would not be a wise thing to do." "And what," the Buddha continued, "would be the wise course of action?" The monks answered that a wise person would reflect, "This raft has served its purpose beautifully. It has brought me to safety. Its work is done." They might then pull the raft up onto the riverbank, leaving it there for another traveler to use. Or they might simply push it back into the water and let it drift away, continuing their own journey onward, unburdened. The Buddha confirmed their answer. "Exactly so, monks. The wise person uses the raft to cross the flood, but does not carry it on their back afterwards." Then came the final, crucial point. The Buddha declared, "In the same way, monks, I have taught the Dharma, the teachings, as being like a raft, for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of holding on to." This is one of the most freeing statements in all of spiritual literature. The teachings themselves as every concept, every technique, every word you are hearing in this very moment are the raft. The practice of watching your breath is a log in the raft. The body scan is another log. The teaching of the second arrow, the 4 fields of right effort, the practice of metathese are all the vines and branches we are using to bind the raft together. It is an incredibly precious, incredibly useful tool. It is, for us, the only way to get from the near shore of anxiety, restlessness, and suffering to the far shore of peace, liberation, and safety. We should build our raft with care. We should use it with diligence. We should be deeply grateful for it. But we must never mistake the raft for the shore. The purpose of the practice is not to become a perfect practitioner of the practice. The goal of mindfulness is not to become a mindfulness expert. The goal of Buddhism is not to become a perfect Buddhist. The goal is simply to cross the river. The goal is to be free from suffering. And the danger is that the ego, the part of us that loves to construct identities, can easily seize upon these spiritual tools and turn them into a new and improved version of itself. We can begin to compare our practice to others. "My mind is so busy, I'm a bad meditator." Or we can develop spiritual pride. "I have been practicing for 10 years. I understand these things deeply." This is like lovingly polishing your raft on the far shore, while forgetting that the whole point was to leave the river behind and walk freely on the land. We can become so attached to the details of the technique. Am I feeling my breath in the right way? Am I using the exact right meta phrases? that we create a new form of anxiety for ourselves. This is clinging to the raft. To understand the teachings as a raft is to adopt a wonderfully pragmatic and flexible attitude. It means holding all of these tools lightly. It means using what is useful for as long as it is useful and being willing to let it go when it is no longer needed. On some nights, you may find that the simple anchor of the breath is exactly what you need to steady your mind. On other nights, your mind may be too agitated for that, and the systematic journey of the body scan may be a much more effective tool for settling your nervous system. On yet other nights, when you are beset by self-criticism, the gentle warmth of metta may be the only medicine that can help. The raft is made of many logs. You do not need to use all of them all the time. You use the parts that are providing the most buoyancy for you in this particular moment, in these particular waters. The teachings are not a rigid dogma to be believed, but a practical and compassionate invitation to experiment with your own mind and to discover for yourself what leads to less suffering and what leads to more. The only true measure of the path is its effectiveness in bringing you peace. So let these teachings be your good and faithful raft. Weave them together with your own effort and intention. Rely on them to carry you through the difficult waters of your restless nights. Be thankful for the stability and support they provide, but never forget their purpose. They are here to serve your liberation, not to become a new master. They are a finger pointing to the moon of your own inner peace. Do not become fascinated with the finger. Look at the moon, and when you finally arrive on that far shore of safety and stillness, and you feel the solid ground of peace beneath your feet, you will have the wisdom to simply turn, to bow to the raft in gratitude, and to walk on, light, free, and unburdened. We have learned to hold our spiritual practice lightly, to see the teachings not as a destination, but as a raft to be used for crossing over and then left behind. This is a profound letting go, but as we stand on the far shore, having left the raft on the riverbank, we may notice that we are still carrying one final, incredibly heavy piece of luggage. It is the piece of luggage we are most attached to, the one we believe to be the very center of our world. It is the idea of me. It is the sense of a solid, continuous, independent self who is the hero of our story. It is the I in I cannot sleep. It is the my in my anxiety. It is the me who feels like a failure. This deep-seated belief in a separate self is the ultimate anchor of our suffering. It is the central character that all the dramas of our mind revolve around. And the most radical, subtle, and liberating teaching of the Buddha is a direct investigation into the nature of this self. It is the teaching of anatta, or not self. This teaching is not a nihilistic declaration that you do not exist. It is not an attempt to invalidate your unique life story, your relationships, or your experiences. When you look in the mirror, there is a face. When someone calls your name, you respond. On this conventional, functional level, of course you have a self. The teachings do not deny this. The problem arises from a case of mistaken identity. We mistake this conventional, ever-changing process for a solid, unchanging entity. We have a deep, instinctual feeling that there is a permanent chief executive officer sitting in the control room of our mind, a little me behind the eyes who is thinking the thoughts, feeling the feelings, and running the show. We believe we are a noun, when in fact we are a verb. The teaching of anatta is a gentle invitation to look for this CEO. It asks us not to deny the self, but to investigate it, to see what it is truly made of. The Buddha offered a brilliant method for this investigation. He suggested that we deconstruct our experience into 5 fundamental categories, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. He proposed that everything we identify as me or mine can be found within one of these 5 baskets. By examining each basket in turn, we can see if we can find a permanent, independent self anywhere. The first basket is form. This is your physical body. your bones, your skin, your organs, your hair. Is this body your true, unchanging self? At first glance, it may seem so, but look closer. This body is in a state of constant, radical flux. It is entirely composed of non-body elements. The food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, the air you are breathing. Cells are dying and being reborn in every moment. The body you have now is not the body you had as a child, and it is not the body you will have in old age. It is a temporary, flowing process, completely dependent on conditions. If you lose a strand of hair, are you less you? If you cut your fingernails, where does the you go? The body is a precious vessel, but it cannot be a permanent self. The second basket is feeling. This refers to the raw sensations that arise when our senses make contact with the world. These are categorized as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. A pleasant feeling from a warm blanket, an unpleasant feeling of a headache, a neutral feeling of the air on your skin. Are you these feelings? This is clearly impossible. Feelings are like the weather, they come and go with incredible speed. If you were your feelings, you would flicker in and out of existence thousands of times a day. You are the one who experiences the feeling, but you are not the feeling itself. The third basket is perception. This is the mental faculty that recognizes, identifies, and labels. It sees a shape and color and says blue car. It hears a sound and says dog barking. It feels a sensation and says anxiety. Is this labeling process your true self? Perception is also unreliable and dependent on conditions. It can be mistaken. You might see a rope in the dark and perceive it as a snake. Perception is a useful function, a tool, but not a solid, unchanging self. The fourth basket is mental formations. This is a vast and varied category that includes all of our other mental activities, our thoughts, our moods, our opinions, our beliefs, our intentions, our habits, our biases, our memories, our dreams. The entire chattering of the monkey mind resides in this basket. Are you these mental formations? As we saw with the empty boat, a thought is an impersonal event that arises due to causes and conditions, lingers for a moment, and then vanishes. If you were your thoughts, you would be a chaotic, contradictory, and constantly disappearing being. You are the awareness in which the thoughts appear, but you are not the thoughts themselves. The fifth and final basket is consciousness. This is the basic faculty of knowing, the raw awareness that arises at each of the 6 sense doors, the consciousness of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. It is the light that illuminates the object. But is this consciousness your true self? The Buddha pointed out that consciousness is also dependent. It cannot arise on its own. Seeing consciousness depends on an eye and a visible form. Hearing consciousness depends on an ear and a sound. Thinking consciousness depends on the mind and a thought. It is not a singular, independent entity that exists on its own. It is a process that arises in relationship. So, after looking in all 5 baskets, where is the self? Where is the permanent, independent owner of these experiences? The conclusion is both startling and liberating. We cannot find one. The entity we call self is simply the momentary coming together of these 5 ever-changing, interdependent processes. Imagine an onion. We believe there is a solid core at its center. So we begin to investigate. We peel back the first layer, the layer of the body. Then we peel back the next layer, the layer of feelings. Then the layer of perception and the layer of thoughts. And finally, the layer of consciousness. We keep peeling, looking for that essential, solid kernel of onionness at the heart of it all. And when we have peeled away the final layer, what do we find? There is nothing there. The onion was nothing but the sum of its layers. There was no core. Our self is exactly like this onion. It is a verb, not a noun. It is a process, not an entity. The practical application of this profound insight is a gentle, curious investigation in the moments of our suffering. When you are lying in bed and the thought "I can't sleep" arises, you can gently ask yourself this question: who is this I that cannot sleep? Look for it. Can you find it? Search through your direct experience. You will find a body that is tired. You will find feelings of frustration or agitation. You will find thoughts of worry. You will find an awareness of all these things. But can you find a single, solid, unchanging entity that is the owner of it all? Who is it that is anxious? When you look for the anxious I, you find only the impersonal sensations of anxiety itself. The I is a ghost, a story we add on top of the raw data of experience. When we see this, the personal nature of the suffering begins to crumble. It's no longer "I am anxious." It becomes, there is a feeling of anxiety present in this body-mind process. The burden becomes infinitely lighter. This teaching of anatta is the ultimate letting go. We let go of the raft of the teachings, and then we let go of the very idea of the traveler who was carrying the raft. The suffering was never happening to you. It was just happening. Without a solid self to be the victim, to be the target, suffering loses its grip. There is still pain, there is still discomfort, but the second arrow of personalized anguish has no one to strike. And in that, there is an immense and boundless freedom. There is just the walking, just the resting, just the breathing, in a world no longer filtered through the heavy, burdensome lens of me and mine. Having journeyed into the profound and subtle teaching of not-self, of anatta, we may feel a sense of groundlessness. If there is no solid, separate me at the center of our experience, then how are we to live? How does this non-existent self navigate the complexities of the world, make choices, and find a skillful path forward? The answer to this crucial question lies in what is perhaps the most famous and foundational principle of the Buddha's entire teaching. It is the navigational chart for the entire spiritual journey. It is called the middle way. The Buddha described the spiritual path as a narrow trail along a high mountain ridge. On one side is a sheer, perilous cliff, the extreme of self-mortification. On the other side is an equally dangerous precipice, the extreme of self-indulgence. The middle way is the safe, balanced, and sane path that runs directly between these two fatal extremes. It is not a compromise, but a transcendent third option, a path of profound wisdom and balance that avoids the pitfalls of both too much and not enough. Let us first examine the extreme of self-mortification, or what we might call the path of harsh asceticism. This is the path of the spiritual perfectionist, the white-knuckle approach to inner peace. It is rooted in the belief that freedom can be achieved through force, through rigid discipline, and through a constant, grinding effort to suppress our every impulse. It is the voice that says, "If I just try harder, am more disciplined, and follow the rules more perfectly, I will be free." When applied to our quest for sleep and peace, this extreme manifests as a new form of tyranny. It turns our sanctuary into a prison. It means developing an obsessive and rigid adherence to a set of rules. I must be in bed by 10 p.m. on the dot. I must meditate for exactly 1 hour before I even attempt to sleep. My bedroom must be at a perfect 68 degrees, with absolute silence and zero light. The practices themselves, which were intended to be tools of liberation, become stressful chores on an ever-expanding checklist. We approach our meditation not with gentle curiosity, but with a grim determination, judging every wandering thought as a failure. We lie in bed not with an attitude of surrender, but with a tense vigilance, monitoring our every sensation for signs of success or failure. This path inevitably leads to burnout. It creates immense stress and a constant feeling of falling short. It is the path of Sona tuning his lute string ever tighter until the sound is harsh and the string snaps, leaving him with nothing but frustration and the desire to give up completely. On the other side of the ridge is the equally perilous cliff of self-indulgence. This is the path of laxity, of carelessness. It often arises from a misunderstanding of teachings like non-attachment or not self. It is the voice that says, since nothing ultimately matters and there is no solid self, then why bother with any effort at all? I'll just do whatever I feel like. When applied to our quest for sleep, this becomes an excuse for mindless behavior that actively sabotages our well-being. It is the voice that says, well, I can't sleep anyway, so I might as well scroll through my phone for the next 3 hours. It is the choice to eat a heavy meal or drink alcohol right before bed, to watch a violent, stimulating movie, or to engage in an agitating argument late at night. This path, which masquerades as freedom, is actually a different kind of prison. It is the prison of reactivity. By mindlessly indulging every whim, we pour gasoline on the fire of the monkey mind. We overstimulate our nervous system, making peace impossible. This path leads to a vicious cycle of agitation followed by exhaustion, and often culminates in a morning filled with regret, brain fog, and self-loathing. This is the path of the completely loose lute string, limp and lifeless, incapable of producing any beautiful music at all. The Buddha did not come to these conclusions through mere theory. He discovered the wisdom of the middle way through the direct, lived experiment of his own life. His journey is the ultimate illustration of avoiding these two extremes. First, he lived the extreme of indulgence. As Prince Siddhartha, he was raised in a palace, shielded from all hardship. He was surrounded by every imaginable sensual pleasure, the finest foods, the most beautiful music, the most luxurious silks, the most pleasant company. He had everything a person could possibly desire. Yet, he found that this life of endless pleasure-seeking did not lead to true or lasting happiness. It led instead to a subtle, gnawing sense of dissatisfaction, a feeling of meaninglessness. He realized that gratifying every desire of the senses could not touch the deeper disquiet of the heart. And so, he left the palace and threw himself into the opposite extreme, the path of harsh asceticism. For 6 years, he lived as a forest hermit, practicing the most severe forms of self-mortification imaginable. He fasted until his ribs protruded, and he could feel his spine by pressing on his stomach. He held his breath until he felt sharp, stabbing pains in his head. He slept on beds of thorns and exposed his body to the extremes of heat and cold. He pushed his body and his willpower to the absolute breaking point, believing that by torturing the body, he could liberate the mind. But he discovered this was also a dead end. He found that a weakened, tortured body could not support a clear, concentrated mind. His insights were clouded by pain and exhaustion. He was no closer to peace than he had been in the palace. Having personally and profoundly experienced the futility of both extremes, Siddhartha finally collapsed by a river. He accepted a simple, nourishing meal of milk rice from a village girl, an act that his former ascetic companions saw as a great failure. But for him, it was the great turning point. With a body that was no longer tormented by pain and no longer distracted by luxury, and a mind that was clear and determined, he sat down under the great Bodhi tree. Following this new path of balance, the middle way, he finally achieved the profound awakening he had been seeking. This is the path we are invited to walk. The middle way, applied to our nightly rest, is a path of profound, practical wisdom. It is not about perfect, rigid rules, nor is it about careless indulgence. It is about creating wholesome and skillful conditions for peace. It means making the wise choice to turn off stimulating screens a while before bed, but not berating yourself if you happen to stay up late one night to finish a wonderful conversation. It means practicing meditation to calm your mind, but holding that practice lightly as a gift to yourself rather than another chore to be perfected. It is the beautiful, dynamic synthesis of right effort and gentle surrender. It is having the wisdom to know when to be disciplined and the compassion to know when to be soft. It is learning, night after night, to tune the precious instrument of your own body and mind, not by force or by neglect, but by listening closely and responding with kindness, with wisdom, and with a deep and unshakable sense of balance. We have been walking the middle way, learning to find the delicate balance between effort and surrender, between discipline and gentleness. This path teaches us how to navigate the terrain of our lives with skill and wisdom. Now, we arrive at a teaching that has the power to transform the very ground beneath our feet. It is a radical perspective that challenges one of our most deeply held beliefs, the belief that problems, difficulties, and afflictions are things to be avoided, eliminated, or conquered. Our entire culture is built on this premise. We see a problem and we seek a solution to make it go away. But what if the problem itself is the solution? What if the obstacle is the path? What if, as the Zen masters say, affliction itself is a gateway to enlightenment? This is a profound alchemical idea, the art of turning poison into medicine. Let us look at this directly in the context of our struggle with sleeplessness. For most of us, when we find ourselves lying awake night after night, we relate to the experience as an enemy. Insomnia becomes a malevolent entity, a thief in the night that steals our precious rest, our peace of mind, and our energy for the following day. It feels like a personal tormentor, a cruel warden in the dark prison of our own bedroom. We see it as a sign that we are broken, that something is fundamentally wrong with us. And so, our relationship with the experience becomes one of war. We hate it, we fear it, we resist it with every fiber of our being. We are locked in a desperate battle with our own consciousness, a battle that, by its very nature, we can never truly win. This adversarial relationship is a source of immense suffering. It is like being at war with the weather. You can curse the rain all you want, but you will only end up soaked and miserable. The wisdom of turning poison into medicine invites us to lay down our arms. It asks us to consider a radical, even revolutionary, possibility. What if this sleepless night is not an enemy, but a teacher? What if this difficult, unwanted experience is not a curse, but a hidden opportunity? What if, instead of a torture chamber, your bedroom at 3 a.m. could be seen as a kind of spiritual laboratory, a silent, private retreat where you have the perfect conditions to practice the very things we have been exploring? When viewed through this new lens, the entire experience transforms. That period of wakefulness is no longer a waste of time. It becomes a masterclass in observing the monkey mind. When else do you have such a long, uninterrupted period, free from external distractions, to simply watch the habits of your own mind? The night becomes a private cinema, showing a feature film of your deepest worries, your most persistent plans, your oldest regrets. It is the perfect opportunity to sit on the riverbank and simply watch the traffic of the mind, to practice seeing the thoughts as empty boats. The very thing that feels like the problem, the racing mind, becomes the ideal object of your practice. Furthermore, the very suffering you feel becomes a powerful opportunity to cultivate compassion. When you are feeling frustrated, anxious, and broken by your inability to sleep, this is the perfect moment to practice metta. It is no longer a theoretical exercise. It is the direct application of medicine to a real and present wound. Offering yourself the phrases, "May I be safe," "May I be at ease." When you feel anything but safe or at ease, is an act of profound courage and self-love. You are learning to be your own best friend at the exact moment you feel most abandoned. The difficulty itself becomes the catalyst for developing the boundless heart of compassion. The sleepless night is also a direct and visceral transmission on the truth of impermanence. When a wave of anxiety feels all-consuming, when the restlessness feels like a permanent state, you have the opportunity to watch it with mindful awareness and see for yourself that it is not solid. You can feel the intensity of a sensation rise, peak, and then subtly change or fade. You are proving the truth of anicca to yourself on a cellular level. You are learning that no state is final, that the clouds of the mind, no matter how dark, are always in motion. And perhaps most profoundly, the struggle with sleeplessness can serve as a powerful spotlight, illuminating the very things you are most attached to. Why is being awake so distressing? Because you are attached to the idea of a perfect night's sleep. Because you are attached to being productive and energetic the next day. Because you are attached to being in control of your own body and mind. The insomnia, like a wise teacher, holds up a mirror and shows you, with undeniable clarity, the nature of your own clinging. It reveals the chains you have wrapped around yourself, giving you the opportunity to finally see them, and perhaps to begin to let them go. This entire alchemical transformation hinges on a single, powerful shift. It is the shift from asking the question of resistance to asking the question of curiosity. The question of resistance is, how do I make this feeling go away? How do I fix this? This question is born of aversion and leads only to struggle. The new question, the question of wisdom, is this: what is this experience trying to teach me? This question changes everything. It reframes you from the role of a victim to the role of a student. It infuses the difficult, seemingly meaningless hours of the night with a sense of purpose and discovery. The experience is no longer a sign of your brokenness. It is a part of your curriculum. The insomnia is no longer a tormentor. It has become your guru. In Buddhism, the lotus flower is a potent symbol of enlightenment. It is an object of pristine, radiant, and immaculate beauty. Its petals are unstained, its form is perfect. But the most profound lesson of the lotus flower is not its beauty, but where it comes from. The lotus does not grow on a pristine, sun-drenched mountaintop. It does not grow in a carefully manicured and fertilized garden. The lotus flower grows only out of the thickest, darkest, foulest-smelling mud at the bottom of a murky pond. The mud is not an obstacle to the lotus. The mud is the essential ingredient. The lotus takes the very substance of the muck and the myretha decay. The filled hand through a mysterious, miraculous alchemy. It transforms that mud into the substance of its own transcendent beauty. Without the mud, there can be no lotus. The mud is our suffering. It is our anxiety, our grief, our fear. It is the dark, messy, difficult, and unwanted stuff of our lives. It is our sleepless nights. Our culture teaches us to hate the mud, to try and escape it, to cover it up or pretend it isn't there. The wisdom of the lotus teaches us that this very mud is the necessary nutrient for the growth of our wisdom and compassion. By meeting our difficulties not with aversion but with the warm, accepting light of mindful awareness, we are performing this same alchemy. We are transforming the poison of our pain into the medicine of our awakening. We are using the dark, fertile mud of our restless nights to grow the beautiful, resilient lotus of our own inner peace. We have been learning to reframe our relationship with our nightly struggles, to see our difficulties not as enemies, but as teachers. This naturally leads us to a deeper question. What is the origin of these difficulties? Why do some nights feel peaceful, while others are filled with torment? In our search for answers, we inevitably encounter one of the most powerful and perhaps most misunderstood concepts in all of spiritual philosophy. That is the concept of karma. In the West, the word karma is often used in a way that is vague, mystical, and tinged with a sense of cosmic retribution. We think of it as fate, as a predetermined destiny, or as a system of reward and punishment meted out by some unseen universal judge. He had it coming. That's his bad karma. This popular understanding is almost the complete opposite of the original teaching. To demystify it, we must return to its simple, practical, and scientific root. The word karma in Sanskrit literally means action or deed. The law of karma is not a moral law imposed from the outside. It is simply the natural law of cause and effect, as impersonal and as reliable as the law of gravity. It states that every action, every cause, produces a corresponding result. Wholesome actions, born of kindness and wisdom, lead to wholesome, happy results. Unwholesome actions, born of greed, hatred, and ignorance, lead to unwholesome, painful results. If you plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. If you plant a seed of poison ivy, you get a rash. The result is inherent in the nature of the seed. When we apply this clear, pragmatic understanding to our experience of sleeplessness, it becomes a profoundly empowering tool. A difficult, restless night is not a punishment. It is not a sign that you are a bad person paying for some long-forgotten transgression. It is not your fate to suffer in this way. A restless night is simply a result. It is the fruit, or in the Pali language, the vipaka, of seeds that have been planted. And who planted these seeds? We did. The law of karma invites us to become investigators, to look honestly at the actions of our day that created the conditions for the experiences of our night. What are these seeds? Think of a typical, stressful modern day, a day that begins with grabbing a phone and immediately flooding the mind with emails and alarming news. A day filled with rushing from one task to another, multitasking, fueled by caffeine and sugar. A day where we have a difficult interaction with a colleague or a loved one, and the argument is left unresolved, simmering in our minds. A day where we spend our evening consuming agitating media, be it a violent television show or a divisive social media feed. Each of these things, the rushing, the unresolved conflict, the mental overstimulation, ease and action, each one is a karmic seed. We are, in effect, spending our entire day planting seeds of agitation, stress, and restlessness in the field of our own consciousness. Is it any wonder then that when we lie down at night, we harvest a crop of anxiety? The law of karma simply teaches us that we cannot plant thorns all day and expect to lie down on a bed of roses at night. The connection is not mystical, it is psychological and physiological. The Buddha taught that we create karma. We perform these actions through three primary gates: the gate of the body, the gate of speech, and the gate of the mind. Our actions of body are what we physically do. Are we moving through our day with a frantic, hurried energy? Or are we trying to bring a sense of mindfulness to our movements, to feel our feet on the ground? Our actions of speech are what we say. Are our words kind, truthful, and intended to bring harmony? Or are they harsh, divisive, or thoughtless? A single, sharp word spoken at 5 in the afternoon can have a long karmic echo, replaying itself as a painful memory in the quiet of 2 in the morning. But the Buddha emphasized that the most powerful and important gate of all is the mind. The true root of karma is intention. You can give someone a gift, but if the intention is to make them feel indebted to you, the karmic seed is one of selfishness, not generosity. Our minds are constantly performing actions. Every thought we choose to indulge, every mental state we allow ourselves to dwell in, is a karmic seed. If we spend our day replaying grievances, indulging in fantasies of craving, or feeding loops of worry, we are actively practicing the state of restlessness. We are rehearsing for a difficult night. This understanding moves us completely out of the position of being a passive victim and into the position of being an active creator of our own experience. If a difficult night is the result of seeds planted in the past, then a peaceful night can be the result of seeds we choose to plant right now. in the present. This means that a good night's sleep does not begin when your head hits the pillow. It begins the moment you wake up in the morning. It is the cumulative result of a day lived with mindful intention. How do we plant these skillful seeds of peace? We do it by bringing our practice into the small moments of our day. We plant seeds through the body by taking a 2-minute break from our desk to stretch. We plant them by eating our lunch mindfully, instead of while scrolling through our phone. We plant seeds through our speech by pausing for just 1 second before we respond in a conversation, asking ourselves if our words will be helpful and kind. And most importantly, we plant seeds through our mind by taking mindful moments. You can set a quiet alarm to go off 3 times a day. When it sounds, you simply stop whatever you are doing and take 3 conscious, deliberate breaths. That's it. That one small act, repeated throughout the day, is a powerful seed of calm. Each time you choose to let go of a resentful thought, you are planting a seed of peace. Each time you offer a silent wish of loving kindness to someone you pass on the street, you are planting a seed of peace. Imagine 2 farmers. The first farmer sits in his field and simply prays for a good harvest. He does not till the soil. He does not choose his seeds carefully. He lets the weeds grow wild, and he does not water his plants. At the end of the season, he is filled with anger and self-pity at his meager, weed-choked crop, blaming the weather, the gods, or his own bad luck. The second farmer is wise. She knows that a good harvest is not a matter of luck, but a matter of skillful action. She carefully prepares the soil of her mind in the morning with a few moments of quiet reflection. Throughout the day, she is mindful about the seeds she plants, choosing seeds of kindness, focus, and calm. When she notices a weed of anger or anxiety begin to sprout, she gently removes it before it can take root. She waters her wholesome seeds with moments of mindful breathing. Her bountiful harvest of peace at the end of the day is not a miracle. It is the natural, predictable, and beautiful result of her own wise and gentle actions. We are all farmers of our own consciousness, and the law of karma simply reminds us that the peace we so desperately seek at night is a harvest that must be grown with our own hands in the daylight hours of our lives. We have been exploring the deep and subtle laws of the mind, learning how our actions and intentions throughout the day become the seeds that blossom into the experiences of our night. The law of karma teaches us that peace is a harvest we must cultivate. Now, we bring this understanding into the final, crucial hours of the day. While peace is ultimately an internal state, we are not separate from our environment. Our outer world profoundly influences our inner landscape. A cluttered, chaotic room often encourages a cluttered, chaotic mind. A space filled with the stressful artifacts of our workday will constantly pull our mind back to those stresses. Therefore, one of the most practical and compassionate actions we can take is to consciously shape our environment and our evening routines to be a cause for peace. This is not about creating another rigid set of rules, but about skillfully creating the conditions that invite the mind and body to gently and naturally unwind. The first step is to transform your bedroom from a multi-purpose living space into a true sanctuary of stillness. A sanctuary is a sacred place. It is a place of refuge, of safety, and of quiet renewal. For many of us, our bedroom has become an extension of our office, a cinema, a dining room, and a place where we have our most difficult conversations. We bring the energy of work, of entertainment, and of conflict into the very space where we are supposed to surrender into our deepest rest. To create a sanctuary, we must reclaim the space for its one true purpose: rest. This means, as much as possible, removing the triggers of your daytime life. Piles of work papers, the laptop computer, the exercise equipment. If these things can be moved elsewhere, the room will breathe a sigh of relief. This is an act of setting boundaries, of telling your nervous system that when you cross the threshold into this room, the demands of the world are left behind. The light in your sanctuary is important. In the evening, avoid harsh, bright overhead lights, which mimic the blue light of the sun and can inhibit your body's production of melatonin, the hormone of sleep. Instead, use soft, warm lamps that create a gentle, cozy glow. Consider the soundscape. Is it quiet and peaceful? Perhaps the gentle hum of a fan or a white noise machine can help mask disruptive sounds from outside. A few drops of a calming essential oil, like lavender or chamomile, can also be a powerful sensory cue, signaling to your brain that it is time to relax. By decluttering the space, softening the light, and quieting the noise, you begin to train your mind and body through simple association. Over time, the very act of entering your bedroom will become a signal to your entire being to begin the process of letting go. It becomes a place you enter not to try to sleep, but to simply be at rest. Hand in hand with creating a sacred space is the practice of creating a sacred time, a gentle, predictable evening ritual that acts as a buffer zone between the activity of the day and the stillness of the night. Think of this as a dusk ritual, a gradual transition that allows your nervous system to downshift gracefully. The single most powerful element of this ritual in our modern age is the great disconnection. This means choosing a time, perhaps an hour or even just 30 minutes before you intend to sleep, to turn off all electronic screens, the phone, the tablet, the computer, the television, all of them. This is not just about the stimulating blue light they emit. It is about disconnecting from the endless stream of external input. Every notification, every email, every news story, every social media post is a small hook that pulls your mind out of the present moment and into a state of agitation, worry, or craving. To intentionally unplug is a radical act of reclaiming your own mind. It is a declaration that for this final period of the day, your attention will belong to you and not to the demands of the digital world. Once you have unplugged, you can begin to introduce other, simple, sensory rituals. Consider the gentle act of preparing and drinking a warm, non-caffeinated beverage. A cup of chamomile, peppermint, or lavender tea can be wonderfully soothing. But the practice is not just in the drinking, it is in the mindful preparation. It is in hearing the sound of the water boiling, in watching the steam rise from the cup, in feeling the warmth of the mug in your hands, in inhaling the gentle, fragrant aroma. Each of these small sensory details anchors you more deeply in the quiet peace of the present moment. You can then choose to nourish your mind, not with agitating information, but with timeless wisdom. Read a few pages from a book of poetry, of philosophy, or of spiritual teachings. Choose a book that does not grip you with a suspenseful plot, but one that gently points your mind toward a larger, more peaceful perspective. Reading a few lines of wisdom before bed can change the entire channel of your mind, shifting it from the frequency of daily anxieties to the frequency of serene contemplation. Finally, as the very last step before getting into bed, you can create a formal closing ceremony for your day. This need not be long. Just 5 or 10 minutes of intentional practice can make a world of difference. It could be a short period of sitting quietly and focusing on your breath. It could be a brief body scan, consciously releasing any lingering tension. Or it could be a few moments of metta practice, offering wishes of kindness and peace to yourself. This final, quiet moment is like wiping the slate of your mind clean, allowing you to enter your bed with a sense of completion and calm, rather than dragging the unresolved residue of the day with you under the covers. Think of how a traditional monastery or temple operates as evening falls. The loud, active work of the day, the gardening, the cooking, the studying, gradually comes to a close. A deep, resonant bell may ring through the courtyard, and its sound is a signal to the entire community that the energy is shifting. The voices become softer, the walking becomes slower. The lights are dimmed. The community gathers for a period of quiet chanting or silent sitting. The entire environment, through this ancient and time-honored ritual, begins to evoke a state of stillness. The inhabitants are not forcing themselves to be quiet. They are stepping into a stream of activity, a rhythm that carries them naturally toward a state of inner peace. Your own dusk ritual is your personal monastery bell. It is the signal you send to the vast, inner community of your own body's cells and your mind's chattering residents. It is the gentle announcement that the work of the day is done, that the striving is over. It is the compassionate invitation to enter the great silence of the night. Through the simple, loving power of intention and repetition, you create a well-worn path, a reliable trail that can lead you, night after night, away from the noise and chaos of the world and toward the profound and healing sanctuary of your own still heart. We have walked a long and patient path together on this journey inward. We have learned to create a sanctuary in our room and a ritual in our evenings. We have learned to plant the seeds of peace during our day, understanding that our night is the harvest of our own mindful actions. We have explored the deepest workings of the mind, learning to see our thoughts as empty boats, to accept the ceaseless flow of impermanence, and even to question the very existence of a solid, separate self who is the victim of all this turmoil. We have assembled a beautiful and sturdy raft, and now we point our attention toward the far shore. What is the nature of this peace we seek? Is it something we must build, piece by piece? Is it a fragile state that we must struggle to achieve and then desperately try to protect? The deepest wisdom of this path tells us something quite different and far more hopeful. It tells us that peace is not something we create, it is something we return to. It is not a destination to be reached, but a home that has been here all along, waiting patiently for us to notice it. For most of our lives, our attention is completely captivated by the surface of our minds. Imagine your consciousness is a vast, deep lake. The winds of daily life, the stresses, the demands, the sensory inputs, the interactions are constantly blowing across this lake. These winds whip up the surface of the water, creating waves. These waves are our thoughts. Sometimes they are small, gentle ripples. At other times, especially at night, when the distracting winds of the day have died down, the stored energy can create great, crashing, turbulent waves of anxiety, worry, and planning. All of our practice so far watching the breath, body scanning, non-attachmentas, been about learning how to ride out these waves without being capsized and drowned. We have been learning to be skillful surfers on the surface of our own minds. But the profound secret of the lake is this: no matter how violent the storm on the surface, the great depths of the water remain utterly, profoundly still. A few feet below the churning chaos, there is a vast, silent, motionless calm. This deep, imperturbable stillness is the true nature of your mind, the fundamental ground of your being. It has never been disturbed. It cannot be harmed. It is always, already, perfectly at peace. The peace we seek is not in trying to flatten the waves, which is an impossible task. The peace we seek is found in learning to sink beneath the surface, to rest in the silent depths that are our true home. All the practices we have learned are not designed to force the waves to stop. They are designed to allow the winds of our own reactivity to die down, so that the surface of the lake can naturally become calm and clear, revealing the profound stillness that has been there, waiting, all along. The Buddha pointed toward this deep reality in one of his most sublime and mysterious utterances. He said, "There is, monks, an unborn, unoriginated, unmade, and unconditioned. If there were not this unborn, unoriginated, unmade, and unconditioned, there would be no escape from the born, the originated, the made, and the conditioned." This can sound very abstract, but it is pointing to something we can experience directly. The born, the made, the conditioned, is everything we normally experience. It is the world of the waves. Your body was born and will one day die. Your thoughts are born of causes and conditions. Your feelings arise and pass away. They are all part of the temporary, changing display of life. But the Buddha is pointing to something else. He is pointing to a dimension of our being that is not subject to birth and death. This is not some heaven or distant paradise. It is the very awareness in which all of our experiences happen. It is the silent, changeless space of consciousness itself. It is the deep, still water of the lake, not the waves. It is the peace that lies behind all the noise. We can touch this reality in the silent gap between two thoughts. We can feel it in a moment of pure, non-judgmental awareness. It is the stillness we return to when the striving finally stops. Perhaps the most beautiful metaphor for this is to see the nature of your mind as being like the sky. The sky itself is vast, open, clear, and boundless. It is our fundamental nature. The events of our mind are thoughts, our emotions, our moods, our sensations are like the weather that passes through the sky. Sometimes the weather is pleasant. Bright, fluffy white clouds of happy thoughts drift by. The warm sun of joy shines brightly. At other times, the weather is more challenging. Dark, heavy storm clouds of anxiety or anger gather. The cold rain of sadness falls. Flashes of lightning and the roar of thunder fill the sky. The weather is constantly, ceaselessly changing. But the sky itself is never harmed by the weather. The darkest storm cloud does not leave a stain upon the sky. The most violent hurricane does not leave a scar. When the storm has passed, the sky is still there, just as open, just as clear, and just as pristine as it was before. Our suffering comes from a case of mistaken identity. We forget that we are the sky. We believe that we are the storm cloud. We identify with the weather. When anger is present, we say, "I am angry." When anxiety is present, we say, "I am anxious." We contract ourselves down from the boundless sky into the small, dark, and temporary storm cloud, and then we suffer. All of the practices of mindfulness are a training in remembering our true nature. They teach us to rest as the sky, allowing the inevitable weather of our life to arise, to be present, and to pass away, without resistance and without identification. The sky does not fight the clouds. It does not cling to the sunshine. It simply provides the vast, accommodating space for all of it to happen. To find peace is to realize that you are the sky, not the weather. When we bring this profound understanding to the simple act of lying down in our bed at night, everything changes. The bed is no longer a battleground. Sleep is no longer a prize to be won. All of our gentle preparations, the quiet room, the calm rituals, the mindful breathing are simply ways of encouraging the storm clouds to disperse. They are our way of allowing the winds of the day to die down, of allowing the turbulent waves on the surface of the lake to settle. And then comes the final act, the ultimate practice, the practice of trust. Sleep, seen from this perspective, is an act of supreme trust in our own deepest nature. It is the willingness to let go of our focus on the changing weather and to simply rest as the boundless sky. It is the willingness to let go of the waves on the surface and to sink down into the deep, dark, silent, and completely safe stillness of the lake. It is the ultimate surrender, dissolving into the peace that was never created and therefore can never be destroyed. It is the final, beautiful homecoming to the stillness that is always, already, right here. We began our journey together in the dark, in the lonely hours of the night, lost in the chaotic chatter of the monkey mind. We felt the sharp sting of the first arrow of wakefulness and the deeper, self-inflicted wound of the second arrow of our own judgment and fear. We stood on the shore of a turbulent river, constantly being swept away by the currents of our thoughts. But we did not remain there. Together, We learned to sit on the riverbank, to watch the flow without being carried away. We learned that the river itself was governed by the great law of impermanence, and that our suffering came not from the flow, but from our resistance to it. We built a raft, a collection of gentle tools, the anchor of the breath, the warmth of loving kindness, the wisdom of the middle way. We used this raft to cross over, learning to see our thoughts as empty boats, and even to question the existence of a solid self who was the passenger. And upon reaching the far shore, we discovered that the peace we were seeking was not a place we had arrived at, but the very nature of the sky above us, a boundless, silent awareness that had been with us all along. The ultimate message of this journey is both simple and profound. Peace is not a destination you must struggle to reach. It is not an achievement to be won, or a fragile state to be constructed and then anxiously guarded. It is a return. It is a homecoming to the stillness that is your own true nature. It has been here all along, beneath the noise, beneath the stories, beneath the struggle. The work of this path is not to create peace, but to gently clear away the obstructions that prevent you from experiencing the peace that you already are. And so, sleep is not a battle to be won. It is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a sweet surrender, a trusting release into the deep, quiet, and loving stillness of your own being. It is the final, graceful act of letting go. You are not a victim of your mind. You are not helpless in the face of your thoughts and feelings. You now hold the tools, the understanding, and the wisdom to navigate your own inner world with grace, with skill, and with a profound and unwavering kindness toward yourself. You have the anchor of your breath, always waiting to bring you back to the calm harbor of the present moment. You have the clear mirror of mindfulness, capable of reflecting your experience without judgment. You have the gentle warmth of compassion, a medicine for your own wounds. You have the wisdom to know that all things pass, and you have the sky-like nature of awareness, which can never be harmed by the passing weather of your life. The path forward is not one of struggle, but of softness. It is a path of gentleness, of patience, and of trusting the deep wisdom that resides within you. May you walk this path with courage, and may you rest well in the peace that is already yours.